My name is Herb, and I'm an alcoholic, and welcome to our time together. That's what I'll call it. It's a gathering of people who are interested in their own development, certainly spiritual, certainly personal. We call it emotional sobriety. It's a good word for the focus of, coming off of Bill Wilson's letter, 1956 letter, published in the Grapevine in 1958. He called emotional sobriety the next frontier. It didn't go anyplace. It didn't get any traction. A little bit of traction in the early 80s. The name of the author will come back to me in a minute. And he called it stage 2 recovery. Ernie Larson, stage 2 recovery. But that didn't get any traction at that time, even, or very little that I'm aware of. It's about 10, 15 years ago. For whatever reason, emotional sobriety began to catch some traction and has now been talked about pretty regularly by many people around the world, both psychologists and especially in the 12-step community. Dr. Berger has a recording, and we've done some work together with regard to unpacking Bill's letter. I was mentioning before we started that he and I have done many workshops now quarterly on emotional sobriety from different angles, certainly unpacking the letter. And we've done it more than once. And if you've heard us once on the letter, you heard us once, because every time we unpack the letter, we do it differently, because we're different at that time with consciousness and with experience. It's a spontaneous, and that's part of the magic of Dr. Berger and I's presentations together. As we talk about spiritual math, 1 + 1 = 5. And that's really what happens when I do believe, at least our experience is. And we've had confirmation of that from you, the people who participate. We've also done emotional sobriety and the steps. And we've also done emotional sobriety and the concepts, the core concepts, the principles of emotional sobriety as we've developed them and experienced them. Today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about some aspect of the core principles as we see them today. We've codified them in a document that was distributed some time ago. I'll make sure that that is again distributed to the participants of this workshop. If you don't have it, you will get it. Rainey and somebody in my support group will certainly make sure that happens. We couldn't really do this work as effectively as we do without the support of people like Rainey and Nurit and Nan and Nancy, and you'll meet them here in a minute. But also the support of the Mary and Joseph Retreat Center. Melissa is their representative usually, and I think she's here today. Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself and a little bit about the Mary and Joseph Retreat Center? Minimal on me, please. Minimal on me. I'm not the focus here. So
good morning.
She has a tendency to throw a lot of flowers at my feet.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the time zones here present. We're so very grateful and thankful for her, Dr. Berger, and all of you who are here to support the Mary and Joseph Retreat Center. It's so very hard to not give this blurb about her, but you know, he's offered his Zoom workshops. The proceeds go to our retreat center. We're so very thankful, but I will have to spotlight your background, Herb. We just got to do it. He has 40 years in human resource consulting, 37 years of active participation in a 12-step fellowship, a graduate education in psychology, 7 years in Claretian Seminary, 3 books on spiritual awakening. So such an astounding background. I'm sure there's more to add on that list. The Mary and Joseph Retreat Center, in case you haven't heard about us, we are a 8-acre campus that was established in 1963 by the daughters of Mary and Joseph. We were actually first envisioned by the late Sister Mary Ignatius, and we started off as a couples retreat center, but now we welcome all walks of life. If you ever go onto our website, maryjoseph.org, you'll see that we offer many activities, day retreats, gatherings, whether it be in person or on Zoom. We also can accommodate private retreats, conferences, big group retreats, depending on what your needs are. We are open every day, 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays. Currently on our campus, we have a nativity exhibit here, and it's free of charge. So if you're able to stop by our retreat center, please come by. We would love to have you here and welcome you here on our grounds and to introduce you to this serene, lush garden. So thank you so much to all of you.
Thanks, Melissa, very much. I have many people that support me in this work, and Rainey is one of the key people that supports me on the weekends workshops, as well as some of the weekly workshops. But Rainey, would you introduce yourself and make comments about how we proceed today?
Yes, thanks, Herb. My name is Rainey, and I'm a food addict. We have lots of help today, thank goodness. We have Norit and Nan and Nancy, who are all going to be helping Zoom host with me today. And deepest thanks to them. We're so grateful for that help. So a few administrative announcements. The chat area is reserved for administrative announcements and information posted by the host. And we'll open it near the end of the workshop for participant use. Attendees may contact the host directly should you have any questions or immediate administrative or technical issues. Please keep yourself on mute. Keep an eye on the chat because I'll be posting helpful information, including email addresses, websites, resources, flyers, upcoming events, books mentioned, all sorts of stuff. For those of you who aren't familiar with the process to access the PDFs, click on the PDF icon in the chat and it will automatically download to your computer. You'll then be able to print the document if you wish. The presentation is being recorded, and as Herb said, will be on Dr. Berger's website after it's edited. During Q&A, if you would like to speak directly to Dr. Berger or Herb, please raise your Zoom hand and they will call on you in order of appearance. The hand icon is located at the bottom of the Zoom screen under Reactions. If you have any questions, please send me a chat or email me. My email address is on my picture and will be in the chat as well. Thanks so much for participating. I'll turn it back to you, Herb.
Thank you so much. We also have some people who support us in ways that we don't need to describe here in administration. Nurit is from Israel. Nan is now from Orange County. She's on vacation here in California. And Nancy, I believe you're in Long Beach. So you're also in California and are regular supporters of my work. So thank you, everybody, for that. I'm not sure about Dr. Berger. He apparently has some issue, maybe personal or at home. He will be here, I'm assuming, or maybe not, but we'll proceed to the best of our ability with it. And I want to talk about emotional sobriety. As I mentioned, Bill Wilson's letter is what prompted it, and he talks about unhealthy dependencies in the letter, unhealthy dependencies. In this morning's meditation, I was thinking about today and what it is I would like to, what I've experienced in terms of my own journey with the 12 steps. I've been sober since February 21st, 1984. which really started this journey in the sense of waking up. I didn't know I was an alcoholic until it was revealed to me. A story for a different day, not today. I don't want to do that. We're not in a 12-step mode here in talking about the principles, although that's where I discovered, number one, that there are principles, that I had some and I didn't have some, and that I wanted to use the ones I had, and I wanted to adopt some of the ones that I saw that would be very helpful to be a decent human being. I always wanted to be a decent human being, but I missed the mark a lot, especially as I was drinking. So that journey started in the 12-step methodology and awakening in February of 1984. And I got a sponsor right away, but that I didn't know that my sponsor didn't know. And eventually, 4 years later, I was in a meeting and I heard somebody share about working the steps out of the big book. And he had not only information that I'd never heard, but he had a tone that I had only imagined or read in textbooks. He had a bearing, and there was a resonance. I didn't know any of this at the time. It's only in retrospect, as I've looked back on it, trying to understand what it was. He had a tone, a resonance in his voice that resonated with me like a magnet pointing north. And I'd never had that experience before, despite a vast background in education and academia and human development and psychology and theology and all of that. And so I asked him what he did to get what he got, and he told me that he had been taken through the big book as a textbook, and that the steps were precise and they needed to be applied to our personal lives in a special way, and that the promise was a spiritual awakening. And he explained that to me as a change in the way you think and feel and behave. Well, I had wanted that all my life. If I were to say anything about emotional sobriety, that's what that is. It's equivalent to what Bill calls a spiritual awakening and or a spiritual experience. The difference, if you've been around the big book or around me for any length of time, you know that there's an appendix 2 in the back of the book. I say that because lots of people in the rooms don't know that. Appendix 2. Who reads an appendix? Well, it was put in the big book in the second printing. The first edition, first printing, came out in April of 1939. And the 12-step read, having had a spiritual experience. Well, later on, within a year, Bill understood that that was a misnomer, a misfire on his part. Spiritual experience was his experience, that mountaintop mystical, but it's not the majority of people's experience. He had read William James's book, Varieties of Religious Experiences, and he understood that the majority of people who in fact wake up, from a spiritual standpoint or an emotional standpoint or a human standpoint, they wake up, they have a spiritual awakening. All right, well, that's his nomenclature for it. William James called it the educational variety, a very slow process. The bottom line of outcome is the same for a spiritual experience and a spiritual awakening. The bottom line outcome is the same: change. It's a one word, it's really simple. A change in what? The way I think and feel and behave. The difference is the time frame. That's all. A spiritual experience is phenomenal, measurable, has a beginning and an end. It might be 20 minutes like Bill's was, or 20, 30 days like you've heard or read about from some people who have had that experience. Buddha had that experience. He had a mystical experience, waking up under the Bodhi tree as the story is told. A phenomenal experience that's life-changing, very measurable. But the spiritual awakening is very slow. In my case, glacially slow. And I'm using that metaphor very carefully. That's exactly, I mean, so slow that it was imperceptible. And I only recognized it down the road as I look back over my shoulder. I engaged this man to take me through the steps in 1988. It took 12 months. And it was only after I finished my 9th step that I was able to look back and see that I had been changed. Hear the vocabulary. Oh, I'd done a lot of work, and I consciously had changed some of my thinking and consciously changed a lot of my behavior. But the overall outcome for me in terms of the change was way beyond my consciousness and way beyond my ability to do it. And that's the definition of a spiritual awakening. I've talked about it sometimes, maybe you've heard me, spiritual math, 1 + 1 = 2, right? That's regular math. Well, 1 + 1 in the spiritual math equals 5. And there's an incremental difference that can't be explained by my effort or my knowledge or my willpower or my want or emotions or whatever. There's an incremental difference. I'm taken to a place that I don't even know exists. I can't get here from there. And that was my journey up to that point. It included doing the step work. And during that time, I began to do some therapy work with Dr. Berger. Actually, he was the clinical supervisor of the hospital in which my wife was hospitalized for her alcoholism. February of 1984. I went there to support her recovery. And as a result of being there, they asked me to stop drinking to support her recovery. They asked me to look at my own drinking to support her recovery. I was willing to be there. I was willing to stop drinking. I was willing to look at my own drinking history, and I was willing to talk about it. There's the key, both to human development, certainly, and also emotional sobriety. That willingness, the willingness to listen, the willingness to uncover, the willingness to discover, the willingness to accept. Asking the questions, who am I? No, who am I really? Now, I didn't even know the question, although I had lots of exposure to philosophy and theology and psychology as my background. Again, a story for a different day. I studied to be a Catholic priest. But I left the monastery because I didn't find what I was looking for. I mean, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. And I had not enough consciousness to even ask that question. But I knew there was an itch. There was something that was missing in my life. And I prided myself on being a seeker. Once I did this work in 1988, when I was 4 years sober, I discovered that I could become a finder. That's the whole point of this emotional sobriety journey. Obviously, it assumes a physical sobriety. Now, it may not be historically an individual's experience. They may be more mature, more conscious, more emotionally and or spiritually developed than I was. But I can see that there is a logical, biological, psychological time frame here for this organic development. The metaphor I use is that I thawed out. When I came into AA, acknowledging that I was an alcoholic because of the drama in my life, If you're an addict of any kind, there's going to be drama in your life. And when you begin to deal with the drama, to see that it's addiction and to begin to treat the addiction in some fashion, whether that's therapy or church or the 12-step process, there's more than one path up the mountain. You begin to thaw out. And you've heard it in the rooms if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, that it's 90 meetings in 90 days. That comes out of science. It's not just spiritual antidote. It comes out of science. The alcohol and or drugs stays in the biological system for approximately 90 days, maybe longer actually, especially in the drug area. I'm not as familiar with that. It's not my issue. And so going to 90 meetings in 90 days allows you to get some stability biologically, physically, and to also begin to change some habits, perhaps, going to meetings and hearing other people's successes and also failures. We learn from other people's experience so that we don't have to experience their failures, because we're not going to do what they did to fail. Fail meaning relapse. And we also hear what they do in order to have a success, meaning recovery, as well as the beginning of the rehabilitation of their relationships, perhaps with their families and or with their work and or with the court system. For a long time, I asked myself who I was in the seminary, in my training. But I never, it was all, the man who met me in 1988, he said, Herb, you have a lot of information, but you have very little transformation. I mean, it was such a succinct harpoon. It just separated the curtain. And I was, wow, I'd never, he said, you've got a lot of knowledge, academic knowledge, but it's never gone through your heart, never to your feet, and you have not changed. Now, I knew the truth of it from just an intuition, but I didn't know the truth of it from experience. When I did those steps with him, especially the fourth step, that reveals the lack of balance in somebody's life. For me, it revealed the delusions of my beliefs, the corruption of my motives. It made me conscious of principles that I had that I didn't use, especially in the sex inventory. The answer to that fourth question, ninth question, as I list the questions on page 69 in the sex inventory in the big book. What should I have done instead? I was able to identify principles that I had that I didn't use, and I was able to identify principles that I didn't have that would be a good thing for me to adopt if I wanted to be a decent human being, which is what I had always wanted to be. I was always well-intentioned. It just never got transferred into my behavior. Lots of reasons. And one of the key questions to ask in the emotional sobriety journey is, all right, who am I? Really? There's an inventory involved in that, whether that's the step 4 inventory or the step 10 inventory. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. Or the step 11 inventory. Bill gives us 3 inventories. Step 4 inventory to do perhaps once, but maybe once every period, over a period of our lives. My experiences, I've done the step 4 inventory 4 different times over about the first 20 years of my recovery. And it was very helpful to do that, because I was incrementally more conscious and therefore more capable of unpacking the truth, sorting through the lies that have accumulated over time. the inventory of the 10-step, which is a spot check inventory when I'm disturbed. Emotional sobriety. This is the primary tool of emotional sobriety from my experience. Step 10. I'll talk a little bit about it as we get further into our discussion today. I'm basically kind of like setting the stage and the context, hopefully waiting for Dr. Berger to come, without getting too deep into the emotional sobriety conversation itself. But we are going to be talking about core concepts and core principles, these value propositions. We've identified probably 12, no doubt about there's no coincidence there. We've related them to the steps and the principles of each step and the principles of the development organically of emotional sobriety. But we're not going to talk about all 12 of them. We're going to talk about several of them. That first question, who am I, was really answered in the 4th step inventory. Especially in the resentment inventory. I had my first spiritual awakening there, looking at the 3rd column of the resentment inventory. And I use the term column because it's on page 65, that instruction is codified in a 3rd column there, but Bill only gives us words. He doesn't give us definition. He doesn't give us any direction with regard to the application of those words. This man gave me specific definitions and specific applications, and I was able to see the delusions of my beliefs. Very relevant to emotional sobriety is to be able to see what the lenses through which we're looking. I have lenses on, glasses that help me see more accurately what's out in front of me. If my lenses are ground properly, I will see accurately. If they're not, then I won't see accurately, but I won't know that I don't see accurately because those are the lenses I'm looking through. This whole trip on emotional sobriety is the ability to take a look at the lenses, through which I'm looking, to see the delusions that have been created by my circumstances, by my family, by my culture, by myself, by my reactions. Each of us has different personalities and different reactions. Fight, flight, and freeze. Those are the basic instincts, biological for all of us. But each one of us has a dominant one. Some of us are anger-based. Some of us are fear-based. Some of us are shame-based. I didn't realize that shame was a feeling. One of my friends pointed that out. I knew I was dishonest, but I didn't know the underlying nature of dishonesty. Fight, flight, freeze, freeze. It's hiding, it's camouflage in order to be safe. Fight, flight, freeze are very good instincts for us. Well, I'm going to put that up just to, because it's really basic to understanding emotional sobriety.
Herb, could I interrupt for just a minute? Dr. Berger has come.
Oh, okay.
But you will have to make him a co-host. You're the host right now.
All right. Let's do that. How would I find, oh, there he is. Did that work? Yep. He's Dr. Berger.
Hey, sorry about that. Maddie's tutoring went a lot longer than I thought it would go, and I just walked in the door.
Well, take a deep breath. Do you need a bit of time?
Well, I'm okay. I'm just getting settled up here and getting my
All right.
PowerPoint. So you finish your thought here, and then we'll jump in.
Well, I was saying that I was talking a lot about actually my initial development of consciousness that allowed me to get some traction to even address the fact that I was unconscious, number one, and that I had principles that I didn't know that I had, that I didn't use, and I didn't have principles that would be useful to me to be a human being. And that's what we're talking about today, is these core values, these principles, which we can get once we get physically sober and begin to thaw out. And then we begin to get emotionally sober as we continue to thaw out. And I was talking about the survival instincts that you and I have talked about. Well, you're the one that actually exposed me to them, of fight, flight, and freeze. And those are translated into emotional reactions of anger and fear and shame. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with them. They are survival instincts. But the problem is, as Bill talks about in one of his pieces, he talks about instincts gone awry.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are right now, just basically looking at biology and psychology and human nature. Yeah. And that's why this emotional sobriety is so relevant as, quote, the next frontier.
So, an interesting one that a lot of people that are in the trauma field have been including in fight, flight, and freeze is fawning.
I've heard it. I don't like it personally, but that's all right.
It's interesting. It does capture, though, a dynamic. See, I think it might be the wrong word because, see, one of the other instincts we all have is to mind map the other person. See, you talk about survival. Well, I have to somehow ascertain if you are friend or foe. So that, and it's amazing. A child is born with this ability. It was very interesting. I remember you're celebrating your 30th. And remember, I think Maddie was 3 years old at the time. And we were doing a workshop in Westlake. And Maddie comes running to the front, and I'm standing right next to you. And she acknowledges me for a second, but turns to you and runs over and jumps in your arms. Unconsciously, she mind mapped you. She said, this guy is a safe guy for me to go to and connect with. Now, it was interesting what you said. God, had this been 30 some years ago, she would have ran the other way. She wouldn't have run towards me. She would have run away from me.
Right.
But what these people are talking about, the fawning, is where you overly read the other person's mind and do everything you can to please them, to take care of them. A lot of people are saying that that's really what a lot of people refer to as codependency. You and I think about codependency in a much more general term, but that's what they're getting towards. So there is that fourth instinct, right? I have to determine, and every species on this planet makes and ascertains and makes a determination if someone is friend or foe. It's a very interesting thing that goes on. Now, what happens is, and obviously you can see how this happens, if the child is discouraged to honor the reaction, then the mind mapping gets all twisted. It's like your radar goes off. You can't, spot an incoming danger, right? Because you were told that you shouldn't be feeling the way you're feeling. And I want to use that to kind of go to what you were just saying a minute ago. It triggered a thought for me. See, it's a very interesting thing. And in the way you said it a minute ago, and we were talking about it on Thursday night, is that somehow we got alienated from our true principles, from what really felt right or wrong for us. We didn't let them become a personal compass. They didn't guide our behavior. So the question is, what happens? How come we could develop and be so incongruent, right? So out of balance with ourselves, and so better word would be so alienated from how we really feel about things. As you know from the psychology you study, cognitive dissonance is very uncomfortable. It's going to require you to resolve it in one way or the other. But a lot of times we weren't even cognitively dissonant. We had been so alienated from how we truly felt. And you know what just came to me as you were talking, Herb? That's why I love these conversations at times. We got alienated because at some point in time, we decided that who we were wasn't good enough.
Oh, for
But
sure.
we couldn't use our reaction as a guide. What did we have to use? We had to look to our environment
Right.
and say, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to behave? What am I supposed to be doing in this situation? And so we develop so alienated from our true feelings,
Yeah.
from our true values.
Well, because we don't trust ourselves, because we don't have a sense of worth, we don't have a sense of value. And in fact, on the other side of that, we have a sense of worthlessness, of inherent organic defectiveness, that we're existentially broken. Now, I'm not sure all of this is conscious, but I've become so conscious of this in the workshops that I do just in this recent year, that this seems to be almost pandemic for everybody.
Well, it's very true, and it is. And that's why, what we say is that the causes and conditions that are underlying our difficulties are part of the human condition.
Yeah.
That's why so many people, when they come and hear you and I talk about emotional sobriety, and says, that could apply to anybody.
Yeah, right.
What did Bill say? This way of life we think has value for everyone.
Right.
Because he's really getting down to the real causes of our disturbances in our life, and what really causes us trouble. Well, I didn't want to sidetrack you too far. Do you want to finish your thought, and then I'll throw up my slides, or should we just
I think we should begin the
formal
discussion as we have set it up with the slides, and some of what I was beginning to talk about will plug into where we're at in about the middle of it.
Once again, I apologize to everyone for my late start here. I am here with my children. My wife is on a work trip, and so I'm taking care of a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old, and it's a challenge at moments. This morning was one of those. So here we go. So as Herb probably mentioned to you, today is about some of the core concepts of emotional sobriety. And instead of trying to, as we, advertise, we're going to talk about 12 core concepts. What we've experienced lately is that we're really trying to do less, which becomes more. If we went to 12, we would be forced to give you some information and not be able to sit and elaborate in the way we just did. And so we've decided is that today we've really isolated 4 things that we think are going to be highly relevant to your practice, or to developing a practice of emotional sobriety. Now, we lovingly refer to ourselves and jokingly, I guess, at the same time, as the monk and the Marine. So I think
at the same time, Alan was in uniform in Vietnam. I was in uniform in a monastery.
I mean, you couldn't, imagine 2 people juxtaposed, right, in such different worlds, right? And I went in the Marine Corps really as a solution to my alcoholism, and I was a teenage alcoholic, out of control, dropped out of high school. I was having blackouts at the age of 12, and things got worse from that point forward. I mean, that's how bad my alcoholism was. And I needed to do something to change things. And I thought, well, maybe if I become one of the few, the proud, the Marines, that it would turn my life around. And it really did, but not in the way that I had imagined. And that's part of this excitement about the journey of recovery.
I could have used those same words, by the way, in terms of the journey into the monastery.
That's right, you did.
Same words that you just used, I could use them.
Yeah, see, I think we're always looking, and see, and that the part of me that was looking for a solution, that's a healthy thing. Now, because my consciousness was where it was,
Right.
I couldn't pick something that would be a better fit for me.
Right.
Now, it turned out that, look, God's in charge, not me. And
Right.
so it was exactly what I needed to do and to experience. And thankfully, I survived Vietnam.
Yeah.
Physically, there's of course, psychological scars that I carry with me after being in combat. But it really led me to being discovered by my good friend Tom McCall, who's my sponsor today, and he just introduced me to this way of life. So that was back in 1971, Herb.
Right.
So look, 51 years on this journey.
Yeah. And it's fascinating that coming from two so diametrically different backgrounds and experiences, we've come here in partnership with the same sort of evolution to a place where we can help other people get conscious and then deal with and foster their own emotional sobriety.
Very, very true. And it's been a wonderful journey, us discovering this and sharing this journey and carrying this message. It's really meant a lot to me.
So Einstein said the consciousness that created the problem cannot be the consciousness that solves the problem. And I had talked a little bit about that in my opening sort of comments, and that is, this man said, Herb, you have a lot of information, but you have very little transformation. You see, what I knew, or at least thought I knew, got in the way of the truth. But I didn't know that I didn't know, and I couldn't see that I didn't see. So he said, how about you pray, because you're powerless to know and to see and to change. How about we pray a set-aside prayer for a new experience, an open mind and an open heart. That's what this is about. Please join us. God, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my current suffering, my emotional sobriety, and you, for an open mind and a new experience of myself, my current suffering, my emotional sobriety, and especially you. Prayer doesn't change God. Let's get really clear about that. The purpose of prayer is to change me, to make me more conscious, to express a willingness to myself to have an open mind and open heart. Go ahead, Alan.
Well, this is such an important moment in terms of this workshop today, because what we want to create for you is a liminal space. Mm-hmm. We want you to suspend what you typically do in your life and just bring this an openness to whatever experience is going to happen for you. Now, Herb and I believe that recovery is an experiential therapeutic experience.
Yeah.
It is not an intellectual one. Now, we're not in any way denying or demeaning the importance of your intellect. It's very important. Sometimes it's important to see the roadmap, where we're going. And that can be a very, very intellectual thing. But thinking of where you're going and going are two different things, right? Seeing the map and driving is a very different experience. And so we will be laying out some of our ideas about what that map looks like. But to really get the most out of this time with us today, see if you can bring it down to an emotional level. See if you can have an emotional experience with us today. Really open your hearts to being affected by what we talk about. So when I say we're creating a liminal space, in some way, we're asking you to set aside your typical social defenses, right? That we all carry with us in our lives and we operate with all the time. Also to set aside your social convention. We're not going to be, honoring those. Although out in the world, we typically do automatically. But here, we're going to go beyond that. And we're going to talk to what's underneath everything in our life. And that's that I want you to try to do, is to go underneath your typical response, your typical reaction.
Challenge your typical response. Challenge your thoughts. Challenge the slogans that you've heard from your sponsor and or in the 12-step meetings. Not making them wrong, just challenging them. Because we become brain dead, blah, 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 blah. We become brain dead to what we think about and what we say so often that it's a habit. And we're not being conscious. And that's what this emotional sobriety is about. In the heart of it is about becoming really conscious. Oh, and by the way, liminal space, fancy word. All right, one of our teachers used it, and we both incorporated it into our vocabulary, Richard Rohr. And it just means we're in the hallway. We've come out of a room, we're in a hallway. There's a selection of doors, but we don't know where the hell to go or how to do it or what behind the doors. We're in a space and just occupy that space of I'm in between.
That's right. And I love it. I love that space because in that space, there's real opportunity for discovery. And one of the ways I define recovery is that recovery is the discovery of new possibilities and new experiences in your life.
Right.
And that has been proven to me over and over and over again, as it has Herb.
Well, that's what a spiritual awakening is. It's waking up to some new truth that was not available to us up till this point. It's not because we're stupid or not informed, but there is an organic sort of detox that needs to take place in order for us to have the clarity of new consciousness.
That's right. Exactly true. So what we want you to do to begin with today is to really take a moment and reflect on the following questions and really take these to heart, right? Really try to open yourself up to see what your truth is, right, about these things. So emotional sobriety really shows up in our interaction with our world. It specifically shows up in our interaction with people in our life that we love and care about. But it's not just limited to those. These are how we interact with strangers, or when you're driving your car down the road and somebody cuts you off, or, today, unintendedly, this was a great exercise for Herb's emotional sobriety. Alan's not here. What the hell do I do? Do I panic and say, oh shit, he's not here? 5-alarm fire. Do I just start going? And if he shows up, he shows up. If he doesn't show up, I'll just go ahead and talk to you guys for it. You see, that's emotional sobriety. What Herb did and how he was, and I could tell when I came in that he was quite okay. I mean, he missed me and he'd love for me to be here. It wasn't that I wasn't welcome. It was just that he was okay at dealing with it in the way he had to deal with it, because it is what it is. And you're going to hear us bang this drum all day long.
Repeat it, because it's worth highlighting.
It is. Emotional sobriety is staying aligned with the reality of what is happening. And it's really coping with what is, rather than getting hung up with what should be, what you'd like it to be, or what it's supposed to be. You see, all those things take us on a veer. And when I'm over here, all focused on things aren't going the way that I thought they were going to go, I am not dealing with what's happening. If Herb did that, you might be sitting here with a guy crying for 20 minutes or raging, or it doesn't matter. But see, he wouldn't be getting on with the business. And see, that's the point of this, is that when we object, then we now cut ourselves off from the incredible resources that we possess, both internally and externally, to learn how to deal with life on life's terms.
It may be that you're hearing this and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I heard that before. Oh yeah, that's the truth. Oh yeah. Got it. Get on with it. Please pause. This is the bullseye. This is the core of it. Byron Katie said, reality is reality, but only 100% of the time. I mean, that's such a wisdom distilled. You've got to hold it and chew on it and allow it to kind of like permeate your whole being. Reality just is. It's not personal. It just is. People do what people do. Events evolve as events evolve. Life has circumstances. Geological, psychological, sociological. There's lots of moving parts, the dynamics of nature's principles, and there's the essence of it. Nature's principles. Think evolution. Think evolution. Alan has a great word concerning step 2 in power, organismic life force. Think organismic. This is all just evolving the world and the people in it by nature's laws. Nature's laws, like gravity. It's non-negotiable and it's immutable. This is what we're talking about. I'm so glad that we're spending just a moment on it, because I was with a man yesterday, 38 years sober, and his life is challenging. and he got this. It was like a moment. It was just like he'd never, he heard all of the shibboleths in the rooms and in psychology, but it never had the moment of contacting the reality that reality just is not what I expect, not what I want. It just is. Sorry, I had to do a little impresario there.
Well, listen, I it brings to mind, and I'd like to take a moment to share this anecdote from the work I've done with this young man. So about 5 years ago now, I've been working with this family on and off for the last 20 years. And I first met this young man when he was 16 years old. And he came to see me. He was in high school at the time, and I started to talk to him about some of the stuff that was going on in his family and how upset he was about the conflict between his mom and dad. And then we lost touch. He went off to college, and family owns a very, very successful business, and he's being groomed for that. And when he was in his mid-20s, let's say 26, I think it was, he found what he called the love of his life. This woman that was just a perfect fit for him. And for the next several years, they lived a just one of those lives that it was a dream come true for him. He never believed he could be this so happy and find someone that was such a good fit for him, and how they just seemed to be in sync most of the time. And when they were out of sync, they dealt with it in a very good way. And it was everything he ever hoped for. And like I said, about 5 years ago, he had sinus infections, and he had his sinus cavity surgically scraped, right, to remove the infection, to give himself a chance to heal. Well, his wife started to develop a similar problem, and she went through the same surgery. About a day after the surgery, she was complaining about how much pain she had, how difficult it was. And the doctor said, well, just give her some more pain pills, and this is a common reaction. Well, it wasn't common. Unfortunately, he left for lunch, and when he came home, she had passed away during that time. He realized that she was dead. She threw her off the bed, tried to do mouth to mouth. His mom was downstairs. She ran up. They tried to resuscitate her. The emergency people came, and they couldn't. Well, needless to say, we call this a traumatic loss, right? Loss when you expect it is difficult and painful enough if somebody's close to you and they mean a lot. But when you lose someone like that, it's murdered or dies from in a situation like this, there's another layer of trauma that's now put on top of it. And he went into a deep, deep, deep sadness and grief and pain. And, I shouldn't have gone to lunch. If I would have been there, I could have, what could I have done? I mean, the guilt, you can imagine that, right? Every one of us that has empathy can put ourselves in his shoes and just know how terrible, right? How devastating this was. Every dream he had was shattered in a moment. So, needless to say, after about 6 months, and he was struggling, I think his parents reached out to me first and says, we think we need, our son needs you to talk to you and to see what he can do to deal with this incredibly painful experience he's just had. So I start to talk with him, and what becomes really obvious, and it's not because people aren't caring and his parents weren't caring, but everybody tries to make him feel better. You're young, you'll find somebody else, right? Yeah, this is painful, but thank God that this is happening now in your life, because you got a chance to find somebody else later down in your life. Yeah, give yourself some room to grieve, but if you stay in your grief, you're going to get lost in it, and it won't be good for you. So you got to pull yourself up at some point in time. Well, every one of these people that cared about him, even people that had lost someone, were trying to talk him out of what he was feeling. And guess what happened? Every time that happened, it got worse for him. And why did it get worse? Because he felt more and more alone. He felt like, my goodness, no one truly understands. And the truth of it is, they may have understood it. That's why they were trying to pull him away from it, because they couldn't tolerate the pain it was bringing up for them. To think of what that would mean. That happens a lot with people. We fix other people, not to fix them, but because we're uncomfortable. And we don't realize it. It's not a conscious thing. It happens unconsciously. Well, over the next 3.5, 4 years, we just sat in this pain. We talked about and of course, every place he went where they had lunch together would be a reminder. Anytime that, an anniversary date would come up, anytime a celebration, Christmas, her birthday, the anniversary of her, everything was a reminder of this just incredibly painful loss. What we know about loss is, when you lose someone that's so important to you, that for a period of time you're lost, because you've lost a part of yourself. Herb, you can speak to that in a minute, in terms of, how you recently experienced the loss of your wife after many, many years together. 52. It's so, it's just earth shattering, right? It shakes your very foundation of life. So we stayed with this, and I stayed with him, and at times I'd cry with him about it. We would really live in his grief. And with the full faith, and this is the organismic wisdom, that if you stay with it, the forces inside you that will repair you will come into play. They will eventually help you, what we call, integrate the loss. When you integrate the loss, you'll still cry about it. It'll still be painful, but it won't paralyze you. It won't put you in bed for weeks. You'll be crying about it when you need to cry about it. And you'll have the experiences you need to have about it, but it'll be a part of your life. Now, what nobody understood when they kept trying to talk him out of this was the depth of his pain reflected the depth of his love. And so to tell him that he should no longer feel the pain was essentially saying, you've got to stop loving her. Now, people don't understand that, but you don't grieve unless somebody was damn important to you. And to tell somebody to get out of it is dishonoring what that relationship really meant. And as I brought that to him, and as we sat in that and worked with it and cried, well, it's just amazing. About 9 months ago, through a happenstance situation, nothing that was arranged by anyone else, he met a gal that he started to date. And he's decided to ask her to marry him. Now, this is into his 6th year after his wife passed away. Mm-hmm. And see, oftentimes we would run to fix that way too fast. We would run to resolve that pain. And now he's ready for it. He's ready for this new relationship. It's a very different one. They don't fit in the same way. And so now he's going to have to grow some parts of him that weren't there, but he's up for the challenge. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, It will never be what you had, but it'll be what it is. I mean, and that's our job, is to deal with what it is now. But that's my point of it, is life is going to happen, just like Herb said. And it's what we do, how we meet that experience, that's going to determine if that experience helps us become who we are and what we can be, or if it becomes toxic and now sends us off in another direction.
The one of my favorite images was given to me by a speaker who said, you can't make a flower grow by pulling on it. Now think of the deep wisdom of that. It's organic.
Yes.
What Alan just talked about, the grief process, it's organic. Oh, there's some people who have studied it, and there's a formula for it, and Kubler-Ross's process for death and dying, and yet there's wonderful understanding of the dynamic. I thought because of my spiritual development and my psychological sophistication and my attachment to the program that I would process my wife's death. 6 months. I'll grieve. Yeah, I'll grieve for 6 months.
I remember that.
It was 2 years.
That's right.
It was 2 years. And I had to deal with the regret of going back and saying, well, what if, or I should have, or I could. And finally, because this is the way I speak to myself as well as to you, and sometimes not so delicately, but the voice said to me, Herb, it may be true. It may be true that if in fact you could have and you should have and you, but the truth is she's dead. So you just need to let it go now. All right, you just need to, and it's a dark rabbit hole that has no benefit to you to go into the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. All right, that was the healing that I needed to kind of like, okay, I don't, to the extent that I foster the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, I'm not going to heal. I'm not going to help in a healthy way with this.
Well, and you know what just came to me, and I think what happens is the I could have, would have, should have come into play because they suggest to us that had we been different, we wouldn't be feeling what we're feeling. And see, that's the big lie. We can't get away from the pain. No matter if you would have done all those things, you would have hurt probably more. I mean, it's not like that would have removed the pain, but see, these are the games we play for ourselves. I love the way you say it. It's the delusions we create.
Yeah.
Had I done this stuff, I would have been okay with her passing away. No, you wouldn't. I mean, you would have felt everything you were feeling. And see, that's what we got to watch for, is these games we play with ourselves that suggest that somehow if we would have done things different, we wouldn't be feeling what we're feeling. But this is this whole thing about that we're alienated from our feelings. We don't embrace them. We don't look at them as sources of information. I love one of the discussions we had at Herb, when you say, think of them as signals, just as signals.
Right.
You don't go up to a stoplight and get mad at it because it's red. Well, you might, because then you expect it to be what you did. But we go up to a stoplight and say, if it's red, it means we stop here. That's all. It's telling me something about what I need to do at that particular moment in my life.
Or when you're driving and the yellow light comes on and it's about tire pressure or water or whatever, it's a signal. There's no judgment other than, okay, I can take some action or I can ignore it. If I ignore it, I burn up my car. If I take some action, yes, it's inconvenient, but this is the reality of it.
Yeah, that's such a good analogy, or is it a metaphor for our relationship with ourselves, right?
100%.
Ignore all those lights. Ignore all those lights, man, and your car at some day is not going to be running. You're going to go out to it, try to turn it on, and it won't start.
The blinking yellow lights are our feelings. Now, some of us have feelings that we need to manage much more than some other people. But like myself, I have to foster and pay attention to my feelings because I'm not somehow not naturally organized to feel and or to respect my feelings.
Right. So these questions take you to that, right? So how do you cope with life when things don't go your way? What's your first response? Be honest with yourself about this. Think of the last few times when things didn't go your way. How did you respond to those? How do you treat yourself when you don't live up to your expectations? When you make a mistake, or when something happens that you regret? How do you talk to yourself about that? What kinds of things do you say to yourself? What's the nature of your self-talk? And then how do you respond to people when they don't do what you think that they should do?
That's a really important concept.
What do you, and how do you react to them? How do you treat them? One of the things that we say all the time is we save our worst behavior for those people that are most important to us, for our families.
What's the Gestalt prayer?
Well, the Gestalt prayer is Fritz Perls saw how important it was to look at our expectations and to start to challenge them. And the Gestalt prayer went, I am I and you are you. You do your thing and I do my thing. I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you're not in this world to live up to mine. If by chance we come together, let's enjoy it. Let's celebrate those moments. And if not, let's just accept them because they are what they are. That was a Gestalt prayer. It's another version of the Serenity prayer.
Well, it's about acceptance.
It's all about acceptance. It's
Right.
about acceptance and really understanding. And see, this is going to be something that we hope to really shed the light on today. Is the waking up process. But let's go to that, because I think we're now going to be getting close to the first concept. But what we just want to emphasize is that it's a little known fact, and it's unfortunate. I've been in many meetings over 51 years now, thousands, and I had never heard anyone say that Bill Wilson said that in step 12, he goes, here we begin to practice all 12 steps of the program in our daily lives so that we and those about us may find emotional sobriety. The purpose, the expressly stated purpose, the goal, the intended outcome of working the 12 steps is to develop a practice of emotional sobriety. Because this practice of emotional sobriety, while we must get physical sobriety if you've got an addiction like I do, because you cannot do this work and you cannot mature yourself when you're in the throes of your addiction. Ernie Larson recognized that when he talked about stage 1 recovery. Stage 1 recovery is about breaking the bonds of your addiction because of what it does to you physically, mentally. There's no way you can do this kind of inner work that we're talking about today if you're still drinking and using. But once we achieve that stage 1 recovery, it's all about what happens in stage 2, which is all about emotional sobriety.
And you have to, well, you don't have to do anything, but please, please be conscious of what the time frame is. Bill is almost 20 years sober when he writes the 12 and 12. He wrote the big book in 5 years of sobriety. All right, that's very basic. But he doesn't mention emotional sobriety in the big book. But in his commentary, almost 20 years later, he talks about emotional sobriety because that's where he had thought out to the consciousness that he was now able to even see that this was the next stage and he called it the next frontier.
He did. It was, and I love, pay attention to the word. Herb does not use words glibly. They are very, very, very well thought out. He's a wordsmith.
Yeah.
When he uses the word thawed out,
yeah,
really take that into an image. He and I talked about the other day. When you're communicating something, if you use a word that invokes an image, it helps a person really hold on to that concept, right? And so here we are, when he uses the word thawed out, he's really capturing that recovery is a process. And it's a process from going from a state of what we would call a consciousness that is immature. I don't like that because it's a little too judgmental. I'll use the word a consciousness that's more undifferentiated. I'll
Mhm.
define that term later. 'Cause that's-
Or undeveloped, yeah.
or
Mhm.
undeveloped. That's even a better term. It's an
Yeah.
undeveloped consciousness, a very primitive consciousness,
Yeah.
a basic consciousness. And as we thaw out, we move to a much higher level of consciousness. So keep that in mind. And his thawing out is moving towards what we can be.
Yeah.
Now, the truth of it is that process that Herb is describing is the organismic
Yeah.
wisdom.
Yeah.
That's the organismic growth.
Yeah.
That's
It's
possible.
built in. It's built into the structure.
Of our genes. The
Yeah.
minute you're born,
Yeah.
you take your breath. You no longer depend on your mother to breathe for you. You start oxygenating your own blood by inhaling and exhaling. It's the first step towards taking responsibility for yourself. Well, that force that's moving us in that direction, that growth force, that moves you psychologically, moves you spiritually, moves you physically to be what you can be. The problem is unlike the physical instincts that automatically nobody had to tell you to breathe if you were neurologically intact, right? If you have problems, you're going to need some help. But if you're intact, you're going to want to take those breaths because you need that oxygen, right? You're going to get a deficit. You're going to become anoxic. Your body's doesn't want that. You're going to breathe. You're going to inhale and exhale. That happens automatically. Growing yourself up emotionally, unfortunately, we're very dependent on our parents, on our culture, on all of the input we're getting as children in terms of how that unfolds. We'll get more into that later, but this is the exciting thing. Bill captured a process, a methodology. And if you go to Herb's workshop, you'll just see the incredible wisdom inherent in the 12 steps.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting stuff, man. It's just exciting.
Well, it might be premature, but I want to sort of put a topping on that, and that is, this is the rite of passage that he talks about in step 6 and 7. He talks about this is what, and he does it in the 12 and 12. So he was 20 years sober when he wrote that, basically, and he says this takes us, step 6 and 7, from the child to the adult. That's what we're talking about here. This is a process of growth, of organismic growth, and there's a natural rhythm to it. Like the flower that cannot be pulled to grow, it's got to have the right nutrients and sunshine and water and all of that stuff, and allow it to grow organically. You can't make it. I couldn't have been more conscious when I was less conscious. That's as good as it got for me. Oh my God, does that relieve me of a lot of guilt or shame about, why didn't I get this? What's wrong with, no, just the humility is kind of like, okay, all right, this was the process, and this is my life, and this is my experience.
Right on.
Yeah.
So here's the first concept we want to talk to you about today, is becoming aware of the unconscious forces that are living us. Becoming aware of the unconscious forces that are living us, right? These are powerful forces that are living us. You've already heard us make reference to some of those things, but this becomes a very important part of developing a practice of emotional sobriety. This is what Gurdjieff says. In order to awaken, first of all, one must realize that one is in a state of sleep. See, that moment, that aha moment becomes so important. That epiphany, that wait a minute, maybe there's another way to be in this world other than the way I'm being. Maybe there's another way to look at the situation that I've just confronted other than the way that I'm looking at it. Maybe there's another way to react to the experience I'm having other than I'm reacting. Herb and I believe, and I think that this is very important, that one of the things that gets activated in us early on in recovery is your curiosity. This becomes a very, very important element, if you will, an important force in your life in order to pursue a practice of emotional sobriety. Why? Because it gets you to start having reasonable doubts about things that you didn't have doubts about before. You know what? There might be another way to react to this situation. There might be another way to think about what's going on. There might be another way to understand the experiences that I'm having in life. What happens because of everything we talked about, Herb talked about, we kind of fall into a sleep. We become automatons, right? We just go through life doing what we're supposed to be doing and never really even question things. When that happens, people even have said that it's like we're in a hypnotic trance.
Yes.
Right? In the book Radical Responsibility, Sarah Brock, I think is her name. She talks about it. He says we will go through life in a trance, not even realizing we're in this trance. So every spiritual practice talks about the awakening, doesn't it, Herb?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Gurdjieff says most people are asleep dreaming that they're awake. It is such a great wisdom. I mean, it captures my journey, certainly. I thought I knew, and I was blocked from, but I needed a teacher. I needed a guide to, number one, ask me questions that helped me wake up. Then I needed that teacher to help me see the truth of the lies that I had been believing.
Yes.
And then I had to have that teacher as an accountability partner as I began to navigate the path. Now, those teachers were therapists, they were step guides, they were sponsors, they were spiritual directors, and a variety of people at a variety of time, not just one person. But I was willing and open to seek help.
Yes, that's right. So look, what puts us in this trance? Like, how do we get in this state? Well, as soon, and we won't go into all the details of this, but as soon as we dedicated our life to actualizing a concept of who we should be, instead of self-actualizing, instead of actualizing who we are, is we fell asleep. Let me say that again. As soon as you thought, well, I have to be like this, or I have to be like that to be okay, or I got to do this, right? Those typically take a couple different paths. But let's say your thought was, well, I've just got, if I can just master things, if I could be number one all the time, I'll be okay. Well, once you do that, you have to push certain parts of who you are to the foreground. They become essential parts of your personality. We call them essential selves. And other parts of you, let's say that it feels inadequate or insecure, you have to eject them, right? You can't have those around, because if you're going to be the best all the time, you can't be plagued with any self-doubt. So you see what happens. You put yourself to sleep. There's parts of you that you actually knock out. I think it's almost like we put them under an anesthesia, right? We put those parts, we will not pay attention to them. We will not address them. We will not own them. We will not speak to them. Now, they don't go away. That's the problem. And see, I say this all the time. We get disturbed not because we have pathology. You get disturbed in life because you aren't honoring who you really are.
Well, it's compounded. It's compounded with addiction, because addiction puts us to sleep.
Oh, it adds. Well, it is. I'll tell you. I talk about it. There's certain drugs. Those people that are addicted to heroin, they are asleep most of their life.
Yeah. Right.
You see somebody using that, they're like this all the time, right?
Yeah.
They are. And alcohol, they used to use that for an anesthesia.
Yeah.
In the Civil War, you took a swig of whiskey before they cut your leg off.
right.
Well, we take swigs of whiskey to put ourselves asleep,
Right.
to stay asleep, to keep ourselves asleep.
To change our consciousness, to change our feelings.
I say that we do this because we are trying to ensure our existence, but we do this to try to find a moment to be okay with ourselves. Now, it's very, very short-lived. It's ephemeral, right? But it is that attempt to try to find some way of managing my life with the consciousness I have. See, never did I think about that I had to change my consciousness. I just had to change how I was feeling with the consciousness I had. And we'll get more into this later, but
Carl Jung, and Bill says it in one of his materials, wrote a letter to Bill Wilson in 1961, and he said, most alcoholics are very spiritually oriented. Unfortunately, they have this deep thirst for the spirit, capital S,
yes.
and they get distracted by spirits with a small s.
Yes.
I mean, that captures it. That's who we are as human beings. We have this existential yearning, and we assume that some material reality is going to satisfy us, when in fact, that's a misrepresentation of reality.
That's right. So the more succinct way I say it is, it's not what's wrong about us that's the problem. It's what's right about us that we are not honoring.
Yeah, not honoring. Yeah.
That we are not honoring. See, our desire for that connection to be one, right? He talks about one. Well, that's not just one outside of ourselves, but it's to be whole.
Yeah.
It's to move towards a wholeness. A holiness is the way I like Richard Rohr says at times.
Exactly.
What is holiness? It's the desire to be whole, to feel complete, right, in our life, to be okay with who I am. You see, that's what our life is about, is moving in that direction. But because of the limited ideas we get from our experiences and from our culture and stuff like that, we go off on a veer. In this culture, the veer is we focus on having, and we say, I am more the more I have. If I have this look, I'll be okay. If I have this car, I'll be okay.
See, but that's the delusion. That's the delusion. Right.
You know, and then we get those things, and then you sit there and going, well, wait a minute.
Right.
I'm not okay. What happened? You know, let me get more things. I mean, that was George Carlin's joke.
Right.
Is that we get a bigger house with a bigger garage, not to put cars in, but to put stuff in.
Right. Right.
And then we rent spaces and we store stuff in other places.
Right.
You know, it's like, my God, what did Richard Rohr say? There is no U-Haul following your hurts. I mean, there's none. I mean, you can't take any of this stuff, and then we are off on that direction. What the steps do so wonderfully, they help us focus on being rather than having.
And or doing even.
That's right. We're focusing on our character development, our spiritual development, our emotional development. We're not getting lost in those other things, but you'll see it manifest itself into people. People come in and they'll talk about how they're working the steps and they have this program down. Well, my God, good for them. They have this. I don't know. How do you have something that you don't have? I mean, you don't ever have this program. You continue to learn. I mean, my God, I've seen Herb's understanding of these steps change dramatically since he first worked them.
Yeah.
And that's my experience too.
And it's no accident that the chapter 5 in the big book, how it works, that first page of chapter 5, that first page, most of it's about rigorous honesty.
Right. That's what this is. And we have to have that. So, you know, this is the experience, right? This is what happens in our life. You know, these forces that are living us have created a lot of dependence on our environment to be okay. We look for environmental support. Bill called it emotional dependency. We have these emotional dependency generates these demands and claims about how life is supposed to be. Those turn into expectations and unenforceable rules. And we, you know, and what we do is the way that Virginia Satir said it, is that we're constantly trying to get out of our emotional jail. But we do so by begging others to let us out, by pleading, please treat me the way that I want you to treat me. Please care for me the way I want to keep. Or we start to get mad at them and angry with them, thinking that they hold the key. That's the dilemma that we find ourselves in. We've created this jail that we think that other people have to let us out, that they have to free us, and we have no idea with the consciousness we have what to do to get out of this jail.
And there's many ways of approaching this to become conscious of it. And you talked earlier, Alan, about looking to the outside in order to measure our success and or our insides.
Yeah.
And it never will work. The biggest lesson that I learned in this process was to find the principles in me, to find out who I am, to find out what I want, to find out what I think. And the classic example is when I was a monk, I wore a black robe and I meditated every day for 7 years. When I decided I didn't find what I was looking for, I took the black robe off. And I didn't meditate again for 25 years. Well, what's that? Well, when I'm a monk, I meditate. I wear a black robe. When I take the black robe off, I'm not a monk, so I don't meditate. It was all from the outside, nothing from the inside. And that was the same with principles. The principle for me was don't get caught.
Yeah.
All right. But self-gratification and all of the stuff that goes with narcissistic personality disorder, all right? I mean, it never occurred to me to operate from inside. It was like, no, what looks good, what makes me feel good, what makes me look good, not to myself. Was that that's the conversion we're talking about. I do believe emotional sobriety is, and you talk about it, bringing the center of our gravity deep down inside ourselves.
Yeah.
And the image I use that we cut the puppet strings.
That's right.
We cut the puppet strings from people and circumstances and events. Anything outside of myself does not determine how I feel.
That's right. Yeah, very well said. Yeah, because this could have easily been a puppet on the end of all these strings. And all those strings, we think somebody else has put them on us, but we've attached them. We've attached the strings.
We've attached the strings. Boy, I tell you what,
And then
that's it right there.
And then we hand somebody else the controls. I mean, it's like,
no,
I got these strings. Here's my controls. Please move me the way I want you to move me. I mean, how absurd is that? I mean, it's like,
but it's a natural development, but that's the process of the rite of passage from the child who
Yes.
receives it all for survival.
Yes.
And has to learn how to be independent.
This is so important, and I've come
It
to
is.
the last couple years, Herb. We don't need to shame ourselves and fault ourselves for our dependence. It's a natural state of development as we are developing as human beings. And the fact that we haven't moved beyond that is not something to fault ourselves for. It's to be aware of and start growing ourselves along these lines. See, so please hear that. You are not pathological because you're emotionally dependent. And
Right.
see, that's my beef with codependency. And we won't get into this whole thing. But when we label things like that there's something wrong with us and seeing that there's something right about us, it's just that we're missing what the next step is. That's all. It doesn't say that we're wrong. It says we need to grow. I mean, that's what's missing.
Well, and there's a lot of knowledge that's just happened in the last 20 years. For instance, there's been brain research now because of technological development. We didn't have the technology 20 years ago, but over this last 20 years, we now understand the brain of an adolescent doesn't fully mature, meaning physically, biologically develop until you're 25 years old.
Yeah.
Holy cow, no wonder. I mean, think about the people at 18 to 25 that are drinking and using. Good Lord, you think that their brain is developing in a healthy way?
Yeah. And what they say is the part of you that goes to better and better judgment doesn't really mature until you're in your mid to late 20s. So
Yeah.
when we sit there and we look at adolescents and shame them because of the decisions they're making,
Yeah.
nothing to shame about it. They're doing the best they can with the kind of consciousness they have. All
Yeah.
we need to do is help them learn from it, not make them feel bad about themselves like they should have known better. You don't know better. That's why most of us do a lot of bonehead things in those years in our life.
That recognition, though, is the humiliation that brings us to humility.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not unique. Oh, I'm not special. Oh, I'm not exempt. Oh, I'm not entitled. All right. Now, those are not negative conclusions. Those are the sense of connecting to reality that says, okay, I'm one of many. I have some assets. I have some deficiencies. I make mistakes. I'm not a mistake. I get an opportunity to correct my mistakes and therefore make less mistakes less frequently, make course corrections more effectively, etc. And that's that growth process that you talk about, organismic.
That's right. Well, so when we fall asleep, right, then what happens is that falling asleep doesn't mean that we don't generate a whole set of beliefs about the world. We all develop a worldview. And Herb, I love how he says it. Those beliefs become our lenses. Why don't you elaborate on this slide a little bit, Herb?
Well, it's something that I became aware of as I did a 4-step inventory, which allows me to look at my behavior, which is very objective, and then to interpret some of the less obvious motives and beliefs that are generating that behavior. I go to my behavior because I can see that. Then I try to work my way back into the system to find out what's the source of that behavior. And Alan just said, you notice that on the slide that beliefs is in a different color. That's the lens through which I'm looking. But because it's the lens through which I'm looking, I don't see the lens. Yeah. Inventory or good therapy or good religion or a good relationship. There's many paths up this mountain. They will help us look at the lens through which we're looking so that we can see that it might be delusional. It might be warped because of a dysfunctional family or a dysfunctional culture or a dysfunctional life experience, trauma especially, has in fact created. We don't know it's creating a warped lens because it's organic, yep. And we don't see it changing. Yep. But I go probably once every year or every 2 years to have my glasses refracted, retuned, so that I can see more accurately outside myself reality or my interpretation of it. All right, because I don't see reality as it is ever. That's science now. We don't see reality as it is. It's not possible. We always see reality as we are. Oh my God, that's a life-changing truth. We don't see reality as it is. In fact, I'm not a scientist, but I read some stuff, and it says even a scientist that's looking at objective reality, when they look at objective reality, changes the reality itself. I mean, so we can never know the truth. No, seriously. In all humility, we can never know the truth because when we look at it, we change it. Yeah. And we also look at it as we are, not as it is. This gets really woo-woo. Am I speaking correctly, Alan?
Oh, listen, you see, and this is where then people say, well, then when you guys say, well, reality is only reality 100% of the time, what the hell you guys talk about if all reality is subjective?
Well, oh, no, I don't know. It's not subjective. Reality is objective.
It's reality.
I just can't see it.
Don't get confused about that, because when we say, when I look at it, I change it. Yeah. Yes, that's true. but there is still, how to give you a good example of this. It's like gravity is always going to be gravity. There's nothing subjective about it. If you get up on top of a roof and you jump off thinking if I flap my arms really fast, I'm going to be able to fly. Well, good luck. People have tried that through the years, and there's a lot of broken bones, and sometimes people have died trying to pull off flight in those kinds of ways, right? That's not how flight occurs. So people, once we understood all the real dynamics of it, and this is flight is a wonderful example of it. A plane gets lifted in the air, right? By the different pressure underneath the wing, right? So when that happens, the plane gets lifted. Once we understood that, we could start to develop better and better aircraft. We became aligned with reality.
The principles of reality.
That's
Right.
And see, so that's a great thing. Now, how does that play out personally? Well, when you expect somebody to be something they're not, you're going against reality.
Right.
If somebody has been lying to you, and then you go to them and expecting them to be honest, and then you get all upset that they've once again lied to you. Well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 100 times. Whose problem is it?
And yet that's a very difficult thing for people to see. I regularly in my workshops doing the work with regard to resentments, for instance, have people say, well, she doesn't respect me. We're talking about mothers and mothers-in-laws and grandmothers and partners, whatever it is. And I say, and so how long is this your experience? Well, it's been for 20 years.
Right.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, really? And you're expecting them to change.
Yeah, that's so true, Herb. The way I say it to people is, you don't expect what you really expect. Right. They know that. She even just told you she's been doing it to me for 20 years. Yeah. She expects her to do that, but somehow she walks into that situation and thinks that all of a sudden magically it's going to be different.
Because I'm trying harder, or I'm being nicer, or because I've told her so, or because, figure out the list. And the point is, the lenses through which we look are distorted. Therefore, the emotions that we have, which are reactions to what we perceive, emotions are just biochemical reactions to what we see and interpret. All right. And we want to be safe, and we want to survive, and we want to be comfortable. Lots of different things that's the emotions of it. But if in fact our lenses are distorted, we're going to have a reaction that's going to disturb us.
Now, a typical piece of advice that would be given to a person like this with a let's say a mother-in-law that for 20 years had, well, why do you even still have the relationship? Why do you even go over there? And you hear this all the time. Cut those people out of your life. Well, I'd like to suggest an alternative to that.
Yeah, right. Good.
See, if I accept that for whatever reason, this person is not going to respect me. And now here comes a very important thing. And Herb said this earlier too. And I don't take that personally. Listen to what I'm saying now. If I accept that they're not going to respect me and I don't take that personally, then I can figure out on what kind of a relationship I can have that's appropriate to that relationship. I don't need to cut them out of my life, but I'm not going to turn to them for validation. Right. I can have a relationship with him within the parameters of the reality of that relationship. But I'm not going to ask that person to give me something or to be someone in my life that they can't support, that who they are cannot support, because then I'm setting myself up again. So what we say, and this is a hallmark, this is very important part of growing ourselves up in life, is when there's trouble, stay connected and add more self. Stay connected. Don't run away from that relationship. That's the signal, right? It's like the yellow light in your car. Something needs to be fixed. What needs to be fixed is you need to accept that they're not going to ever respect you. And that's okay. They don't have to. If you respect yourself, you don't need other people to respect you. Bottom line. If you think you need that, then there's something wrong with your relationship with yourself that needs to be fixed. That's the yellow light, by the way, that needs to be fixed. But if you've got that, then you can have a relationship with them without requiring that they're going to respect you. And then have that relationship, go to dinner with them, go celebrate holidays or whatever, but you're going to unhook yourself from needing them to validate you.
Bill says in the 12 and 12, it's a spiritual axiom. Please hear this. It's a spiritual axiom, meaning principle. Whenever I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with me.
That's it.
I'm reacting to them as if they're the gospel of the truth. See, when people are acting or reacting, they're telling you who they are. They're not telling you who you are unless you take on the meaning that they're giving you. And when
if you're emotionally dependent, they will tell you who you are.
Oh, they will anyway.
That's where the hook comes in.
That's right.
Get that. That's why we say not taking things personal is such a critical part of developing a practice of emotional sobriety.
No, it's easier to say than to do. We're not saying any of this is easy, goodness. But when you're in the presence of somebody that's misbehaving, they're telling you who they are. Whatever they're doing or saying, even if it's about you, it's about them. It's not about you. It's never about you. All right. So I had a man come to me 20 years sober and he, Herb, they're doing it. They're pressing my buttons. And I just paused. All right. I don't engage in the drama. And I said, well, whose buttons are they? And he looked at me like a deer in headlights and they're my buttons. I said, well, then remove the buttons.
Yeah.
No. It's not easy to do. It's easy to say, but the insight is there. Remove the buttons. And the word I use is, and my vision of emotional sobriety is to be undefended.
Yeah.
Now, easy, glib for me to say that. It takes some work in order to get there, and you're not always there. But that's my goal, to be undefended.
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
right.
Look, it's 1:50. Why don't we take a 10-minute break?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because Alan and I can go on like this for a long time. And what we want to do is, number one, have you comfortable and have you have an experience and learn from this, but also to participate. Keep in mind the workshop is recorded. So we can't guarantee any anonymity, and we're not going to scrub it. So if you're concerned about anonymity, don't share. But we really encourage you to ask your questions and to dialogue with us when we come back. And you want 10 minutes, Alan?
Let's take a 10-minute break and we'll come back. We'll start with some questions or comments about the waking up process.
Yeah. And
then we'll move on to our second concept of the core emotional sobriety.
Wonderful.
Have a good break. Rainey, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So this idea about if we click on the line between the slides, and the video stream of the speakers, you can move it to the left of the slides and become very small. And then the slides will become small and the speakers will become bigger.
Right.
So that's something that the viewer needs to do, or that's something Herb and I need to do?
No, the viewers can do that as they wish. So they can make the slides bigger if they want, or they can make your faces bigger.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Why don't we take a minute and announce that? I don't know if everybody read it in the chat, but I think that's a cool idea. I didn't know you had that much flexibility.
I think it might just be for people on computers, and of course, some people are on phones or something else, but
That's true.
We can start again, Alan. Are you ready? All right. Let's pick it up and have some dialogue with people who have questions, concerns, even disagreements, and especially experiences. If you've had experiences with what we're talking about, that's probably more important than anything, although your questions are really important too, because that helps everybody perhaps have an experience with it. You can put words to your thoughts and feelings in a way that will help other people put words and thoughts to their own. Sarah, please.
Hi, thank you so much. The one comment that I want to make is that I can so relate to keep the notion of continuing to go back to a table and expecting that table to all of a sudden be the chair that I'm looking for.
I love it. That's so concrete. It's a great picture.
And the other thing that, I'm just going to be honest here, I could really relate to what you just said, Alan, about, it's not about cutting these people out.
Yeah.
And I will just say that I have had to cut some people out because they are so toxic to me. And I don't know how to navigate, and I don't want to be the warrioress all the time, feeling like I have to defend myself. And that kind of goes to what you said, Herb, about your goal is to be undefended.
Yeah.
And Alan, I did want to ask you, I loved this. When trouble, stay connected, don't run away. And then you said something about more self. Is that more self-care? Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, look, you do whatever you need to do in your life, but what you said something very interesting about what you had to do when you cut these people off. Mm-hmm. And you had to do it because you found yourself being defensive. So see, the question for you is, see, there was still a hook in it. Yeah. You were still expecting something from them. That's what got you to be defensive. And see, that's what I am saying. If I add more self, adding more self might be to unhook the expectation I have. In the example of this woman, looking at her mother-in-law for respect, if she add more self, she'd first have to ask herself, is there what we call a projective fit here, or projective identification? The mother-in-law is treating her like she's whatever, scum or whatever it is. Well, if there's not a part of me that doesn't identify with what the mother is saying, then I'm going to say, God, wow, what this poor woman, what's wrong with her? But you see, when I take it on, and that's the hooking part, if there's a part of me that questions myself, Herb talked about it before, low self-esteem. Do I see myself as worthy? Do I criticize myself in the way the person's criticizing me? Do I respect myself? If there's any area that I don't, then I start to drink. Don Miguel Ruiz calls it, I drink their poison. But I drink their poison. Their poison is their poison. That's who they are. When I take it in because it fits something that I think about myself, I'm hooked in. Then I'm going to have to, if I don't deal with that, one way of dealing it would be say, God, you feel about me the same way I feel about myself at times. I think I'm a piece of shit too. I mean, see, if you say that to someone, all of a sudden, trust me, it changes the whole dynamic. I mean, it's all of a sudden this person tells you a piece of shit. Well, you're not a piece of shit all the time. I mean, it's so funny how that happens, because when you call it out like that, it becomes the reality of it. But if I don't have any of that anymore, then it's just like water on a duck's back. You know, like, for example, you say, I think you're stupid. You come on here, you act like you're a PhD, but you're really a dummy. I would probably sit here and say, I am a dummy at times. There's no question about it. I know that. What part of me seems like that to you right now? I wouldn't have to defend it, because I've accepted that I'm smart and I'm stupid. I'm a nice guy and I'm an asshole. I mean, I have both of those possibilities. So if you called me an asshole, you might be right. I mean, that's okay. I don't need to be perfect to be okay. What do I do need to be okay is accepting of myself. Without accepting myself, then I'm going to be very reactive to anything you do. So
how, taking this a little step further, how do we be with the people, this is my sister, who's quite malevolent in relationship to me? I mean, wow.
Like, what would she do? Give me an example of something.
Well, I was visiting her.
Yeah.
I was going through treatment for breast cancer.
Yeah.
I was very immunocompromised. I
Yeah.
was up there helping her take care of her children. I shouldn't have been up there. And I got really quiet, and she came into the room and said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Look, I'm leaving tomorrow. Let's just leave this alone." And she said, "Great, just push it under the rug. Get the fuck out of my house." And I was in Seattle and I lived in Portland, Oregon, and I left. And there's been no amends. There's been nothing.
Yeah.
And to me, that malevolence and that, I mean, it was very vulnerable right then.
You were very vulnerable.
And she was not able to appreciate, and maybe I am not able to appreciate, that there may have been things going on in her life with her marriage. I don't know.
Right.
But it was a place that I don't ever want to return. Anyway.
Of course, but see what I think happened there, when I hear you describe it, is very different than what you think. First of all, you got quiet. What made you get quiet? What was going on?
So I'll tell you really honestly, I was dealing with the fact that I knew that I was never going to be able to have children because the chemo was put me in menopause. I was visiting my sister and her newborn child and her 2-year-old daughter. And how do you say to your sister, "Look, I hate you right now because you have children and I'm not going to be able to have children. You have a very full life, a lovely home, a husband." I just didn't want to go there with her and say that stuff to her.
Yeah. See, so what happened is that because of your, that you felt somehow, and you may have been right, that she wouldn't respond to your vulnerability in a way. So what you did is you stonewalled her when she came to you. You just cut her out of your life. Then when she responded in kind to you, you got mad at her. You stonewall her. She goes, "Fuck you. You want to stonewall me, bitch? I'm going to stonewall you. Get the fuck out of my house." So I don't think you looked at it as though you stonewalled her. See, when you said, "I'm not going to talk to you about it," she knew something more was going on. It was clear that you were in a personal crisis with it. Had you been willing to maybe not go as far as you in your mind thought maybe you would if you were vulnerable, if you said, this, being here with you, there's a part of me that really loves seeing what you're doing, but there's another part of me that's in such a crisis over this. I'm in too much pain. I'm going to have to leave because I need to to soothe my wound right now, because I'm really struggling. And I can't be the sister that you really would deserve me to be. So I'm going to step away now. Can you talk about not now? I'll need some time. See, that would have been at least giving her a little more so she wouldn't take it so personally. When you don't say anything and you stonewall her and she stonewalls you back, then you go, "Well, see, she's malevolent." Well, she had no fucking idea what was going on with you.
At the
None.
same time.
But
at
you
the
were
same-
you were expecting that somehow she should have read your mind or something like that. You see,
Yeah.
so you gotta be careful instead of just blaming what the other person is doing. This is where Herb and I talk about all the time. It's not looking at your part, it's looking at what you did, not your part. You're stonewalling, still, you're not responsible for how she reacted.
Right.
That's her reaction. But your position made it very hard for someone to be coordinated with you.
Well, she wasn't, Sarah, you weren't honest with yourself. You weren't honest, you were angry. But that was a cover for being sad.
Mhm.
The situation is
That's right, Herb.
your cancer, your problem. You made your problem her problem.
Yeah.
You weren't being honest with
So
yourself.
listen to what Herb is saying. Your anger was really a cover-up for how much sadness you were feeling over a loss that you were perceiving.
Yeah.
You weren't mad at her and hating
If-
her.
If you had said,
you were very upset with the loss you had. He's right on with that.
if you
Well,
had
and
said to her, wait, Sarah, if you had said to her, she said, what's going on? I'm really sad. I'm really sad because I realize, because of your bounty, I realize that I'm going to miss that.
Yeah.
I'm just really sad. What do you think her reaction would have been to that?
Yeah. It wouldn't be get the fuck out of my house.
Exactly.
I don't know. I
It
don't
wouldn't be get out of my house. You know that.
Yeah.
There would, because look, people respond in kind. I just told you that. She responded, you stonewalled her, she gave it right back to you, dear.
Yeah.
That's what happened there. So see, this is where, and then when you say, well, she never made amends, well, did you?
The
Did
big
you?
book says, the big book says it clearly, we step on their toes and they retaliate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But it's hard to see
Oh.
that that's what you did. See, that's the point of this.
Yeah.
You're sitting there going, wow, this is a very different way to look at this. It's good that you're doing that, though. I appreciate your vulnerability right now and that you're going to see something about yourself you didn't see before.
Yeah.
So first of all, get rid of blaming other people.
Right.
Start to look at what am I doing that's stepping on the toes of others and they feel they have to retaliate to me. How do I treat other people that then creates a possibility of being treated like this?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the working point.
And really clearly what I saw was people just do what they do. It's not personal. Although it impacts me. Whatever they do or say does impact me, but it's my reaction that is my responsibility. I'm not responsible for their behavior or their thoughts or their feelings. I'm not actually responsible in the sense of being betrayed and being hurt. I mean, it could be physical and emotional. I'm not responsible for how it comes at me. I'm responsible for how I interpret it, how I react to it. And
how I initiate it. In this case, what did I do?
That's even
Right. In
Well,
this,
and the other piece that I think is really important that I've had to come back to is I had no business being up there with being as immunocompromised as I was, being around two little kids. I was on antibiotics because my counts were so low. So that was my wanting to, just what you talked about earlier, mind mapping, and I'll do whatever I have to do to have a relationship with you, to my sister, regardless of the impact that it has on me. And so I think it was just not sitting with myself and saying, this isn't wise, Sarah. This isn't wise. This isn't good self-care. Wish her
And-
well.
right. And see, and that could have fueled some of your anger, that you were mad at yourself for that, but you projected it outside yourself.
Probably, yeah.
See, so that's the other piece, because I did also acknowledge that when you were talking, or I recognized what you just said, that you didn't really want to be there.
Well, I wanted to be there, but I wanted to be there healthy. I
Yeah,
didn't
but you
want to
weren't.
be-
But see, that's the reality again. If we deal with the reality, this
Exactly.
was not a good time for me to be there.
No, it wasn't. And I think that's what fueled the resentment. Lives here I am doing this for you. And that just doesn't work.
No.
So what you can see here at some point perhaps is that you might owe your sister an amends.
Oh boy, Herb, come on now. Still look at this, but boy, you're asking a little.
I don't have
He-
many friends.
By the
but-
way, Sarah, he's right on, baby. He's
Say what?
right on. He's right on. You stonewalled her. You stonewalled her, and then you were mad that she stonewalled you, dear, but you stonewall her. You did stonewall her.
You're not telling me what I want to hear.
Of course.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
and say thank you, Herb and Alan.
Yeah, yeah.
Say it. Come
Thank
on.
you, Herb and Alan.
You're welcome, Sarah. We won't stonewall you, Sarah. We won't.
Paul, please.
Oh my God, you guys are great. I love this stuff. Great to see you. I really appreciate the discussion. And, you know, something I heard that really made sense to me, that emotions are like our kids. We don't want to let them drive the car, but we don't want to throw them in the trunk either. Right. And as a kid, my mom used to say, you feel too much. And it felt like a fire hose. Right. And so not surprisingly, I got into every addiction I could find. But I wanted to, some time ago, Alan, you mentioned it earlier. Why do we save the worst behavior for the people we love the most? And you said something to the effect of, like, when we get into this, we expect the other person to complete us. And when we find out they don't want the job, we're like, wait, what the hell? Right. And then the other person, no, you're supposed to fix me. And I was hoping you could expand on that.
Well, it's so
I
true,
gotta
man,
show
right?
up.
Oh, listen,
I gotta
all
show
that's
up.
unconscious, Paul, right? It's all
Yeah.
unconscious on our part. You know, if God forbid, if we went into a relationship honest about it and say, hey, baby, I think you can make me whole. You know, I'm going to make you responsible for how I feel, for my self-esteem, for my well-being. Would you like the job? No,
Why can't-
probably. Some people
why
would
can't
say, I
someone
love it.
like-
I mean, you know, but look, it's a setup, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's this craziness, but yeah, you're right on, man. I love what you're saying.
Yeah. Great, guys. Great to see you.
Thanks, Paul. Well, there's Carol. What's in your heart today, girl?
Good morning, guys. How's it going? I
Right?
love you guys, you know, and I'm sorry I missed you on Thursday. It was my daughter's birthday. And it's funny because I was really struck by you know, an exchange I had with my husband the other day, and I've just my husband of always, of course. We were supposed to go hiking too, by the way. And he would say to me, because you know, you always see the dogs on me, right? That my dogs are always coming up to me, and he'll say to me, they just want to love you. And I'm just like, fuck, you know, just back off. I don't need that right now, because you know, everybody's like sucking a piece out of mom. And so the dogs were annoying him and all up in his face. And I looked at him and I said, they just want to love you. And he's like, you know what? That feels really shaming and hurtful when you do that. And I'm gritting my teeth and like, because I withdrew, I was being silent scorn. When he said that to me, I didn't like say, you know, it feels really shaming and mean when you say that. And I was aware in the moment of like how that means, you know, to me, it suggests to me that I'm not really totally current. I still have this stuff with him, maybe my dad, who knows, right? My son, maybe, I don't know. And that, you know, it speaks to that component of, here she is, because she's got to be a part of the
I do. She
conversation.
was like right on cue, right?
She was just right there. Yeah. I was just really conscious of the fact that, like, you know, that's about my emotional sobriety. Now, that's not to say he's not a fucking Neanderthal, in spite of being sober a long fucking time. But I have to really fucking focus on myself, because, you know, you know, the analogy of like driving, right? Like, I'll get mad at the other driver for slowing down and or not paying attention, and I'm missing the light. So I'm like fucking mad at them, right? Like, it's just that it'll always be something until I get a hold of my own content of, that how do I respond to the world around me, and that I need, it's not the world, it's me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you've heard me say it, Carol, I'm sure, because I've said it enough and you've been around a lot. And that is, I was doing a workshop up in Culver City, and a young man who's been there several years and helped me out, and he's in the back and he's got a lot of enthusiasm. And right in the middle of the workshop, without me even calling on him, he just jumps up and he says, Herb, 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 Herb. And I go, what, Jason, what? He said, reality's not personal. He just got it. He just got it. And that's what you're talking about. You're taking reality personally, people slowing down, you're missing the light. It's like circumstances and people are just doing what circumstances and people do. Yes, it impacts you, but it's our role to say, okay, how do I adjust to reality? Reality never adjusts to us.
Yeah. But that's what I'm confused at, Carol. How is it impacting you? What?
Traffic or my husband?
No, the more personal.
Sure.
Yeah, the traffic, Carol. Right on. No, come on now. Your husband.
I get, it goes back to that, like I'm shocked and embarrassed, right? That my response, because I'm a
Okay,
fucking
but
bitch.
what makes you shocked and embarrassed?
I should be further. I should.
Yeah, so what's the
be
part
further.
of you that's shitting on you that you should be what?
I should be more sober. I should be more abstinent. I should be more emotionally sober.
Which
But,
would mean what? Then if you were more emotionally sober, what would that mean?
then I wouldn't be human. Then I would be
Well,
perfect.
all right,
and,
that's not going to work. But really, stay with what it means, though, before you jump to
Okay.
the solution. Don't do that bypass on me. Just slow
Okay, I
down.
won't.
Slow
I'll
down.
slow
Bill.
down.
Slow down.
Slow down.
What does it mean to you that you're that reactive to him?
That I have to clean some stuff up for
All
myself.
right, so stay with that. What does that mean to you?
Inventory,
Mhm.
acceptance,
Uh-huh. And what does that mean to you?
work, and going to God.
And what about any of that is not okay? How come that becomes something that you recoil against rather than embracing? Like, what does it mean that you have to do those things? That
Pain.
seems humiliating.
Pain too, emotional pain and growth,
Okay, and
personal growth.
all right, so that you have pain and you're going to have to grow. What does that mean?
Touching and embracing the hurt spaces.
And go ahead. And so that you have hurt spaces, what does that mean? That you have hurt spaces, that life isn't exactly as you'd like it to be.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That I've been really, that I'm attaching myself to something that's
No. Yes, you are attaching yourself, and it means it's something that is incredibly disappointing for you.
Yeah, that
See,
is.
that's the mood that you start to see. It's
That's
so
it.
funny that you don't put your finger on it, but you are deeply disappointed that this is what is true in your life at this point.
That's the sadness.
There was a big hope and dream that resulted in a lot of expectation that things would look very different at this point in your life.
Right.
and you're having a real hard time with seeing what that means for you today, because for you, it means that somehow that something is just not right. That things should have been more right by now.
Mhm. And my first reaction is to want to be a big girl, get your big girl panties on, suck it up, and move
That's what you're
forward.
doing though. But see, I think
I
when you
know.
do that, that you're not staying with your disappointment. I
Mhm.
see it's like with that young man that I was talking about with his grief. Yeah, all those ideas are right, but they're not right now. That right
Oh my
now.
God, I felt like crying when you were telling
I
that
know, I
story.
could feel it. I could feel how sad and disappointed you are. It's this work. There's always this danger that we set marks at how to deal with it as though somehow we shouldn't feel what we're feeling. But
Mhm.
we've got to use we go through our feelings to get there. We don't go around them. I mean, we've got to go through them. And
Mhm.
see, right now, you just need to sit with your disappointment and quit being so fucking evolved for a while. God
I'm
damn.
not though. I'm
Oh,
like a
yes,
fucking bitch.
you
no, but you
you
are.
expect yourself to be. See,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the problem, girl. In your head, you should be way beyond this shit right now. Come on now.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Mhm.
Knock it off.
Knock it off.
Yeah, yeah. It's about the reaction. And so many times over the years that I think we've been exposed to each other, you regularly use the term about yourself, I'm a bitch.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's just not true, Carol. No, I don't live with you, but
You don't live with me.
but I've been exposed to you sufficiently that you're quite evolved in terms of your understanding and in terms of your program and in terms of your emotions. So
Well,
there's
I think I'm more vulnerable with you than I am with other people,
all right. All right. Well, but I mean, you have a tenderness and an affection and a deep vibrancy that's just, I mean, it's measurable, but somehow
I'm in my own little prison, right?
there. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for, but I couldn't find that. There's a prison about that for you. Yeah. And I don't know where Dr. Berger and you
Well,
were
what
going
I
with
would
the
want you to do,
sadness.
Carol, I just want you
Yeah.
to sit down and just write about all of the things that have disappointed you through your life.
Yeah.
Just do a real soul searching, gut wrenching, evacuation of all of your disappointment. Okay. That's step one.
Got it.
And then you send it to me or Herb, and then we'll talk
Yep.
about it.
I'm going to send it to both you guys because I want all the help.
And
I
you'll get
want it
all.
all. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks
I love you.
very much. Jonathan, please.
Yeah, this is Jonathan in Nevada. And I just want to thank you. It's amazing. And I relate mostly to the idea of not being able to understand that I'm looking through a lens and that I need to adjust my lenses in order to have a clear vision of reality. And in my case, I been looking through the lenses that I adopted from my dad. And he wasn't real healthy, but I love him. And I also recognize that in order to get new lenses, I have to let go and go through some grief. And it's hard, but it's harder to stay, I don't know how you call it, bumping into the walls because I'm not clear.
Well, it's not being disloyal to him, it's being disloyal to yourself.
That's right. That's right. But I really appreciate there's a lot of wisdom and insight and information that I need to hear. So I'm just glad to be here, and thanks for letting me share.
And
Glad to
but
check
really
in.
underscore what Herb said,
Yeah.
Jonathan, because I had the same intuition to say to you. So I love how that happens for us, Herb. I would add to what Herb said. It's not just about being disloyal to him. In fact, the truth of it is for you to become your own person, you are being loyal.
Mhm.
See, any father, if he really thought about it, would want you to be your own man. He would love that. He may not have known how to encourage it. He may not have known how to cultivate it in his son,
Mhm.
but deep down inside, he would want that for you, Jonathan.
Thank you. I believe that's true. He
Yeah.
had a lot of codependency. We were codependent with each other, and so
And even if he wasn't codependent, he'd want it because it is the right thing. Is when
That's right.
we have children, we want them to be whatever they can be that's going to make them happy.
We
That's
want them, yeah, we want them to have a better quality of life than we had. That's our legacy.
See, and so when you say that, just keep that in mind. And see, as children, though, we so deeply want to please them that we will sacrifice ourselves to please them.
Right.
That is built in because of this desire to cooperate. It's one of the instincts we have emotionally. The instinct to join, to cooperate, to please, right? That's so important. And really a funny thing about it is a good parent is going to frustrate the hell out of that. But most parents don't get that because what they want is a cooperative kid, right? So they're going to emphasize the cooperation. But the truth of it is, if you want to raise a healthy kid, get them to be uncooperative. I mean,
They
because
need to learn how to fly out of the nest.
learn how to express their I, right? That's the other instinct. Not we have a desire to please, to join, to be a part of, but the other part is to be myself, is to honor my own feelings and what's important to me. And that I and we is a balancing act that goes on our whole life, man.
And there are some cultures and some families that that's not true for. In fact, the parents or one of them wants to have the person to become something that they think is the right thing, and it's very dysfunctional.
And that's an undifferentiated family, Herb.
It's very difficult. That's very difficult to deal with. Yeah, and to unwind and reframe. But this process is about that. It's not, well, Ella and I both come from the 12-step and spiritual side of it, so I can say this, where perhaps Alan wouldn't, coming from more scientific, secular side. But this is a environment where we can rely on a power other than ourselves because we're powerless, and we need the help and have the faith that kind of help is available to us. We can be taken to a place we don't even know exists, but we have to lean into it. That's my image here. We lean into what we're talking about, this process, this organismic, this glacial slow, this thawing out. Yes, it takes some action, but we just lean gently into it. There's no violence here. No violence here. Lean gently and trust the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you both.
Thanks so much, Jonathan.
All right.
Deb, please.
Good morning, Herb and Alan. Terrific workshop. I have a question. As a sponsor, as someone who receives 10 steps and my own work, I recently had an experience with another OA person, and her behavior created a very powerful resentment in me because she inconvenienced a lot of people. She made commitments she couldn't keep, whatever. I was more interested in why I was so angry. So I did a 10-step around it, and I want your feedback on whether you think this would be helpful. It helped me tremendously, whether it would help somebody else doing a 10-step who calls me. And that is, when I have that much of a reaction to somebody, I'm already at the place where I know it's my disturbance. But I had to figure out why I was so disturbed. Yeah. And I realized in my pondering around it was that she reminded me of my father. My father says, I'll pick you up at 3, doesn't show up till 4.
There you go.
Inconvenience me, bam, 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 bam. When I realized that, I realized I need to heal this old wound, forgive him. And when I do that sick man's prayer, I don't pray for him. I pray for my heart to soften to him. So I let go of the resentment at this person. So yesterday I got a call from somebody who was enraged at her son-in-law. He doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he doesn't work, he's lazy. I said, have you had this resentment a long time? She says, yes, it's been in my inventory for years. So I said to her, does his behavior remind you of anybody? And she said, oh, I need to think about that. Now I'll just stop with that and say, is that something helpful for a sponsor to go into the why? You know, if you're talking about emotional sobriety, not your emotional landscape shouldn't depend on what people are up to. Would you go that next step and say, why are you so enraged?
Well, that's exactly what step 4 asks us to do. And step 10 is merely a repeat of that. The underlying causes and effects, the objective facts. What's the truth? Absolutely. Now, as long as we don't start trying to pretend to play therapist.
Right. And I don't want to do that.
No,
but
no,
just
no, but
invite them.
No, but it's a good question. Let me say something to you though, Deb. Let me take you back a little bit.
Yeah.
See, when something like that comes up, it's important to not get to forgiveness too quick.
Yes.
This is one of the things that happens too much in our program. A brilliant psychologist, I think it was John Weldon, called it the spiritual bypass. Is that sometimes we say, I'm going to apply I'm going to apply a spiritual principle here and it's going to take care of it. See, what I would have encouraged you to do first, before you forgave him, is first say all the things you wanted to say to him about what he did. I resent you.
You're talking about my dad.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yeah, baby. Uh-huh.
So
I did that.
Okay, good. So if you went through that, then what happens is, see, what's wonderful about looking at a resentment, you saw Herb starting to, if you were with us Thursday night, the way he unpacks that, the way I do as a therapist, underneath every resentment is a demand. You should have. Under every resentment, you're going to find a you should have. You've got to get to the you should have. And it's not that the you should have in your case as a child is wrong. He should have been more responsible. You see what I'm saying? So it's not, but back to what we're talking about. If I expect someone to be someone they're not, then the problem is my continuing to have the expectation. So then after you express your resentment, say, if I accept you for who you were, what it would mean to me would be, so hear what I'm saying. If I accept you for who you were and how you treated me, what that would mean for me would be, it might be things I will have to let go of the idea that I could have had a better father. Wow. You see what I'm saying? I'll have to let go of the idea that maybe my childhood could have been different if he was different.
Right. I've grieved that.
Great,
But
great.
Then when this thing came up, I went, oh, you still got a few.
It's there. You're right. So
little...
now the next step is, so you've done a lot of that work. Wonderful. Now here's the next step. You take your resentment towards your dad and you take your resentment towards this other person and you write a list on how things were similar between them and how they were different. This is the next step with this, because that's forcing us to differentiate the now from the then. See, a big part, and you put your finger on it, is when I have unfinished business from the past, I'm going to treat my present as though it's the past. We can't help but do it. So as you start to work through it and you separate it out, it's important to consciously say, what are the similarities between my past? What are the differences? And you keep doing that. And you keep doing it until you exhaust all of them. That's the process of us learning to differentiate now versus our past. It's a
Right.
very important part of emotional sobriety. So when you say, is it important to ask someone to think about, what does this remind you of in your life? It's a very good question. It's a very good question. And there's a lot of tools we have in the program, short of going to therapy, that can help you with it. But if
Right.
it's really deep and painful, then they're going to need some help.
Right, right. And I think the bottom line is the common thread was they were both incapable for whatever reason to
Okay.
step up the way I wanted them to, and that's okay.
And
That's
the
getting
difference
to
is
the
another
forgiveness
difference,
part.
though. This is an important difference. This happened to you as an adult versus as being a child.
Right.
Yeah.
That's probably the most important difference. You've got to stay in your adult ego state.
Yeah.
And not become the child with this person,
Right.
because it means something different to you as an adult that they were not able to do that.
That's a
versus
good
as
point.
child.
Mm.
Very important.
And I want to point out a couple things here. Wonderful conversation and a great question and sharing of experience. Thanks, Deb. And number one, my experience is when I write something out, I need to read it to somebody, because it becomes so much more concrete and experiential.
That's right.
When I read it out loud. I
That's
can
right.
really hear it for the first time.
Yeah, right on, Herb. That's so important. There is something. See, when it's in my head, all it does is bounce between me and my different parts of myself. When I say it out loud, I even have a chance to listen to myself differently.
It's totally my experience, and it's transformative. That
Very
final
powerful.
step is very important. And number two, there were two situations that we were talking about here. Number one, your experience with your father and unraveling the dynamics of that. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And part of your question was, and how do I work with somebody who has a 10th step? And see, you have the experience, you have the information. You're not operating as a therapist. You're not operating with woo-woo psychology. You're coming from your own experience, from your own knowledge and your own process. So yeah, absolutely share with them in whatever sophisticated way you can. Absolutely. Because that will help them then get the information and then have the experience. And then they'll be able to help somebody else.
Right.
Mhm.
It'll help me get free, so I hope that it helps them get free.
100%.
All
100%.
right, lovely.
I'm
Lovely.
very
Thank you.
practical. I'm very practical. What works is what I want to share with other people so that it potentially could work with them.
Right on, Herb.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really beautiful.
Ellen, please.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for this really amazing meeting. I want to also thank you for the very first critical inquiry that you put up, because that to me is such an important basis. How do I cope with life when things don't go my way? Me, my expectations. How do I treat myself when I don't live up to my expectations? I'm such a piece of shit. I can't believe I responded that way. How do I respond to people when they don't do what I think they should? Hey, they should do it my way. How come they're doing it a different way? Gosh, thank you. That was just amazing. I came into a 12-step program right when COVID hit. So I've never been to an actual in-person meeting.
Wow.
But I've had some amazing experiences. And one of the experiences I had was that I thought I was getting it. It's not been quite 2 years yet. But gee, I wasn't. And I've been listening to a lot of different tapes and stating myself here, whatever they are. But I was listening
Recordings.
recordings, thank you, the other day. And
Yeah, some people don't even know what tapes are anymore. You say tapes.
oh, I know, it's
Are you mean
pathetic.
Scotch tape? Do you mean?
Oh yeah, right, that too. And Eckhart Tolle said, the expectation that life should just leave you alone and stop bothering you, I mean, is crazy. And that's what I was thinking. I thought, okay, I think I have this program. I have a sponsor. I've done the steps. I'm okay. Not. And it was just mind blowing. And I just wanted to share that because, life is life. My neighbor had a bumper sticker that said, "Don't take life personally." I got so pissed off when I read that like 30 years ago.
Wow,
What
that's
the
very
hell?
deep insight.
I know. I thought, how dare they? And then now, after 2 years, I'm little glacial, it's slow. I'm starting to get the memo. It's not personal. It just is. It's how I respond.
Mm.
Period, paragraph, end of discussion. The other things that have been really you reminded me of is, is just the lens. I'm sure many of you have heard these Alan Watts, they were taped, from WBAI back in the 60s. He says, when a saint meets a pickpocket, he sees only the pockets. So it is the lens. I mean, you're standing in front of a saint and you just see the pockets.
Yeah.
So anyway, this has really been wonderful. I'm so
I
happy
love
to be
that. That's
here.
very good. That's right on, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
see, we always organize our environment in terms of our needs.
Yeah.
See, this is a very important insight that the Gestalt psychologist and therapist had, is that the way so if you're driving down the road and you're hungry, what do you see on roadside?
Food science.
Every food, right? McDonald's, a Jack in the Box, Wendy's, or Denny's or whatever it is. If you're not hungry, you don't even notice those things.
Right. Yeah.
So we've got to understand, in every relationship, when we're interacting with someone, we are organizing that interaction according to our needs.
Our needs. That's really very powerful.
See, it's if you get this, it can help. Like every person that talked about these things, when these things get activated, they get activated because I am looking to that environment either to resolve a pain from my past or a trauma, right? Or to meet an expectation I have. So if we get this, these experiences, and this is what excite Herb and I so much about, become a window to our souls.
Yeah.
A window to our emotional, what we need to do to grow ourselves emotionally.
Right. And I've also found that the idea of staying in neutral is really important, because I think that there is a way of being like addicted to drama.
Yeah.
And it's a huge energy drain. So, geodic grace over drama or good orderly direction, those things are so incredibly helpful. Thank you for focusing a light on that, though.
And the key, the prelude, the key to step 10, which I call the tool of emotional sobriety, is the pause.
Yes.
Pause, that place of neutrality. I can catch my breath. I can be a little conscious. I can begin to kind of and the longer this pause, the better the response rather than the reaction. A reaction with no pause is hardly ever healthy. A response after pause will be as healthy as the pause gave us time to get conscious.
Right. And that takes that takes conscious action. I have to be so conscious.
Practice. Yeah. Bill says that we practice these principles in all our affairs. And quite frankly, perhaps the next book that Alan and I will write will be The Life is a Practice.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very much, Alan. Carmen, please.
Thank you. Thank you both, Herb and Alan. I have just completed Herb's 12 by 12 workshop for this last year, and I've gained an incredible amount of insights. And your first three questions that you posed, so the middle one, how do I treat myself when I don't live up to my expectations? That's the tricky one. I feel like I can start identifying what my expectations or hopes or desires are, but getting there, that it feels like there's this huge hurdle to get over. And that's hard.
What's the hurdle?
Yeah. Describe that a little bit more.
Okay. Well, okay. So there's one thing in my life that I'd really, really like to accomplish, which is the finishing of this little sailboat that I started almost 10 years ago. And it now sits in the back of my yard, and I haven't done any work on it in the last 2 years. And I want to. I have to resolve some things about where to find a different workplace, blah, blah, blah. but it's like, and I've taken some steps but I can feel myself holding back. I can feel myself.
Yeah. What part of you is holding back, Carmen? What's the holding back?
Okay, I'm gonna cry and talk.
That's an important skill, is to be able to cry and talk at the same time.
Yes, I'm getting better at it.
Well, Dr. Templer told that to Herb many years ago.
It's something I really, really want. And I think that's the key, is like, there's a part of me that doesn't believe I deserve it. And I don't know if that's being too intellectual.
No, but stay with that a minute.
That's not intellectual, by the way. That's
What
very
part is
clever.
telling you don't deserve it? Let's hear. Give that part voice. Tell me why Carmen doesn't deserve to do what she wants to do.
It's my mother's voice.
Oh, it's Mom. I knew it had to be somebody.
And
like
she's
that.
dead. She's
Well,
dead.
it doesn't matter. She's not dead.
No.
She's very much alive in your consciousness.
Exactly.
So, all right, Mom, why shouldn't Carmen do what she wants to do?
Oh, it's too it's what did she the word she used to say to me is, oh, and she said it in a German accent. That's even better. Ach, it's too emotional. Ach.
Yes. So she's too emotional. She shouldn't be that emotional, should she?
No, it's not.
Does
It's
that
not
mean
practical.
She's too passionate. It's not practical.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what do you want to say back to your mother? She just told you it's too emotional. You shouldn't do that. It's too emotional. You're wasting your time. It's not practical. You're wasting your time and money
But it's what I want to do. It's what I really, really want to do. And it's, and I didn't get to do what I want. I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get to do what I wanted to do when I was younger. I had to take care of the whole fucking family. I had to be there for everybody because I had this brother.
Mom, I am tired of putting myself on hold to live the life you want me to live. Say that.
I am tired of putting myself on hold to live the life I want you to live.
That you want me to live.
You want me to live.
Say it all again.
I'm tired of putting myself on hold instead of living. I'm tired of putting myself on hold to live the life you want me to live.
Tell her what you want.
I want to do the things that I want to do.
Do that now. Really shake your, do that, do what you just did with your body and really exaggerate it. As Herb said, stretch it out. Do that. Yeah, go ahead. Really do it. Come on, really. I want you to really get into that.
Oh, it's all.
Come on.
I just want to do what I want to do with the rest of my life.
That's right.
Everybody else be damned.
Not everybody else. Mom,
No.
Be damned. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Mom, be damned. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the block. You're still being a good little girl.
At the same time, it might be worthwhile for you to ask yourself a couple questions. And Dr. Berger will be better at sentence completion than I am. But what does it, this is rhetorical now, for at least from my standpoint. I'm not necessarily asking you to respond, but you're welcome to. And that is, what does it mean to finish? What does it really mean for you to finish? And at the same time, what does it mean to you to not finish? Because you said you've been really working on this for a long time, 10 years, but that in 2 years you haven't done any work. So what's that about?
Wow.
Because we do what's of value to us.
Yeah.
What we perceive to be of value to us. So there's something here that there's a meaning to either finishing or there's a meaning to not finishing.
Right. And you told us what it was. I'm a good girl. I'm listening to Mom. I'm being Mom exactly the way Mommy wants me to be. But you're also really pissed about that. And see, that's the part that you're ignoring. You think that if you get pissed about it and you do what you want to do, you're being disloyal to your mom. Remember what Jonathan said earlier. Remember what he said? He says, I struggle with being myself because it's going to be disloyal to my father. You're in that same dilemma. But what you got to hear is you're not being a good little girl when you give yourself up. You are not. You're, as an adult, you are abandoning yourself. That's what you're doing.
The glee and the pleasure that you had expressed on your face as you were wiggling your body and talking the talk that you wanted to talk, it was like, wow, it just lit me up. Yeah.
And it lit you up. And if you pay attention to that, you'll, next time you get on, you'll tell us how far you've come with your project.
Well, no, that's really a more important comment. That is, in fact, it really did light you up, and
That's
the feeling that you got, that you expressed in your body,
Yep.
was that's the vision that you want to pursue.
That's it. Right on.
Yeah.
So writing works really well for me. Can you give me some guidance on something to write about or something direct?
No. Writing doesn't work for you. You would have been unstuck a long time ago. Give that idea up. Writing doesn't work for you. You need to do what you just did. Shake your body, girl. Shake your body. Quit fucking writing.
Yeah, right, when I'm shaking.
Now you got that right.
Thanks so much, Carmen.
Okay, thank you.
Mackenzie, please.
Hi, so this is kind of my first time with you guys. My sponsor has been putting kind of talking the talk of these things, and so if I go off the rails, let me know. But I've been in 12-step for 4.5 years now. I've been sober and clean and all that good stuff for the last 4 years. And my father passed away on the 6th of October. He was an alcoholic. I was not on good terms with him. I hadn't spoken to him for 6 years. And when I found out he was dying, I called him and said, I'm not mad at you anymore. I forgive you and I love you. And I feel that. Then I have to, the whole resentments that I've been hearing throughout the entire thing, I could relate to, because my uncle, who was my dad's brother, refused to give me some of his ashes. And I'm a little girl, but I'm very fiery. I definitely get very fiery. And so what happened was, when I texted him saying, when am I going to come over and get his ashes? He said, this isn't about you. Mind you, he's an addict too. And I got pissed. I was pissed. And then I didn't do anything. He calls my grandma, who raised me and who's his mom, to tattle on me. And when she said, give her the ashes, Cleet, he's like, we're not family anymore. And he hung up. Well, now he messed with grandma. Oh, it's go time. So I marched over there. It's like a 5-minute walk in my bumblebee onesie, knocked on his door and said, give me back my fucking dad, Cleet. He threatened to call the cops on me. I said, do it. He said no. And I said, I thought pussy. But all that, coming to center, I was so angry. I was so angry. And my first thought, because I've been in program for so long, was that wasn't the best way to handle that. I could have definitely handled that better. But I almost felt like, well, I can't be angry anymore. Like the story that you oh, can't feel this anymore. Let it go. Just let it go. And it still hurts. And I know that I'm going to need to make an amends to him, even though he's probably not going to talk to me for a couple of years. That's fine. The whole what is it? The 9th step is like making an amends as long as it doesn't hurt you or others,
It doesn't say it doesn't hurt you, by the way.
Yeah, I remember that. Like, as long as it doesn't hurt other people, make the amends.
Yeah.
Else we would never make an amends. But I guess my whole thing is.
So what's your issue here? What really is the issue?
When do I let it go for this situation?
When you want to be free.
And when do I know when that is?
Yeah.
No, but I think maybe it's not when do I let it go. It's more how.
Yeah.
Kenzie,
That's a
don't-
good one. Yes.
You don't know how to let it go.
Right.
You know, look, you are a little, you're very spunky. My God, you are. You're right. You're small but powerful, girl. I mean, I know. Yeah, I love it. I love it. But look, it's the question, how do you let it go? See, he's still violating a big should you have. He should be more considerate of your feelings. That's what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
And what you're not letting go is how could he not be considerate of my feelings, especially given the fact that I'm just grieving my father. And this is so important to me in terms of keeping whatever kind of connection I can have with him. See, so it's that's what's going on here, right? Is that it's a big rule you have. And if he was a decent person, he would understand that and accept it, right? And he would then give me what I want to have. Well, guess what? That's not who he is.
No.
You know, he's acting out some kind of drama. I don't know what the hell it is, but he's drawn a line, something like you don't deserve the ashes because of how you treated him, or some shit like that that's going on in his head, that he's got an unenforceable rule too. So here these two people come together, two unenforceable rules, and oh my God, we got the clash of titans, right? He's not
Yes.
going to give in. You look, it's a family trait, by the way. I mean, I hear it in your grandma, I hear it in you, and I hear
Oh,
it.
and my mom was even worse.
Well, there we go.
There you go.
I mean, so this is a family tradition.
So
The only thing that's missing is the
process,
turkey,
yeah, the process is probably for you to revisit your steps 4 through 9 on this laser focused issue.
Yeah.
With the sponsor guidance, and take your time. There's no rush to it, but to process it. Meanwhile, you might want to, if you haven't read or you're not familiar with Fred Luskin's book, Forgive for Good, I do believe that will help you process this at the same time you're reviewing and redoing steps 4 through 9 on this laser focused issue.
Right. See, I think
Yeah.
what you're going to come to, Mackenzie, I think you're going to come to is you don't need his ashes to still honor him.
Correct.
That's something that you're putting on this whole thing about what you need. You
Yeah.
don't need that. And see, if you let that go, then you can let this whole thing go.
Yep.
Then you don't take it personally. Now you focus on doing what you need to do. Create an altar for your father that you create without his ashes. Maybe someday you'll get him, but you don't need him.
Right.
Create.
I actually did get them eventually the next day, his
Of course
wife.
you did.
I would
right.
have
Then
bet
it's
on
even-
you.
Well, then it's
Yeah.
even more important to let it go, because he's not here to live up to your expectations, regardless of the situation, regardless of that he should. That's not in him.
No, and I know
and-
that I have a lot of expectations for everybody in my
But
life.
I was just gonna say, and you took me right there, and
Yes.
that is, I'll bet you do this every place. One of our teachers, Berger and myself, is Richard Rohr, and he says, what we do any one place, we do every place. So I'm assuming this is the story of your life.
Oh yeah. My grandma didn't love me the way I wanted her to love me, and all this
yeah.
other stuff
Oh,
that
yeah.
I've worked with my sponsor and with my therapist
Yeah.
of why do I want to change these people? I feel like I can I want to change my uncle because, he's being a prick.
How
But
about Mackenzie focus on changing Mackenzie?
Right. He's not being a prick. He's being whoever he is. We don't need to put him down for it. There's a reason he's doing it. It's not what you want, but it doesn't mean he's a prick. He's a prick because he's not doing what you want him to do. But if that's the case, then there's going to be a lot of pricks in your life. I mean, or there's just people that are also doing their own thing. And see, that's the issue is learning how to somehow be in relationship to others without putting our expectations on them.
yeah.
And you know this all. Everything we've said is
That's
not
right.
news to you.
No.
It's not news. And you wanted to hear it in the context because you want to be a better person and you want to be free.
Yeah.
You're at a critical stage in your recovery, 4 or 5 years. That's the turning point. That's the springboard for real, authentic, emotional sobriety.
unhook the unenforceable rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
And
need it. It's a
I
lie. You don't need it.
I don't need all the baggage that my addict will produce. It does. It just will produce it, and I have the choice of taking it. And fun little thing before, you send me on my way. I put his ashes in a flask because he was an alcoholic, so I thought that would be
That's kind of clever.
poetic.
It was poetic. You
Have fun.
are poetic, Mackenzie, among other things.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
Thank
Keep
you.
showing up, Mackenzie. This stuff is going to mean a lot to you. There's also a Thursday night meeting. Rainey will put it in the thing. That's just an open workshop that Herb is very much a part of now. And in fact, we're going through the 12 steps, and we're looking at the 12 steps through the lens about how they help our self-esteem, which is also highly, obviously, very necessary to have healthy self-esteem for emotional sobriety. So tune in on Thursday nights.
I will. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Wendy, please.
So first of all, thank you guys. This is so cool. Somebody told me about Herb, and so I signed up. I went to his website, and then so I've been getting these emails. And I got sober in 1986. I've been sober a long time. I remember Ernie Larson.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Herb mentioned him, and I've been in a number of other programs I've needed to join, and I do the steps. I work hard, but I still struggle so much with emotional sobriety. And not long ago, I read Michael Singer's, one of his books. You know Michael Singer? Because he does this one thing that really helped me, which is because, like if I'm driving and somebody, the 4-way stop signs, I go nuts if people don't obey the 4-way stop signs. And of course, that's insanity. And I just, and his thing is that whenever you have that feeling that life is not doing what it's supposed to do, you sit there and you breathe. He says you don't repress or express, you just let it come up. And I found that very helpful. So I feel like it's almost like a labor pain. That feeling comes through and then it goes away. So anyway, that's been very helpful for me. But I feel like, I'm 62, I got sober at 26, and I show up for these things, but I still struggle so much. And I feel like, sometimes I feel like, am I ever going to get it? That I still have these tantrums, about things not going my way. And so I'm not really sure what I'm saying, except that I'm enjoying what I'm hearing today. You guys are great. And I don't know. I just want to put that out. I mean, do you guys still have
I don't know
tantrums?
I don't know what your experience is, but I'm going to say two things in summary, not knowing who you are or what you need, but certainly read Alan's book on emotional sobriety.
Okay. Can I ask if you guys ever have tantrums anymore?
I don't actually. I haven't
Yeah.
had a tantrum in 30 years.
Wow.
I haven't
Alright.
suffered in 30 years.
That's incredible.
They're a lot more infrequent for me,
Yeah.
because I have
Me
let
too.
go.
I mean, it's not always. Yeah.
Well, you see, it's this idea that somehow the world is supposed to conform to my expectations.
Exactly.
See, even when you pull up at the stop sign, the thing is there's a rule here, right?
I
How
know.
come you guys aren't following the rules? But
I
see,
know.
that's the thing about, look, people don't. And what do I want to do with that? How do I want to cope with it? It's back to that idea. Life is what it is. Now tie in what I said before, though, the meaning we give to that. If I've experienced a lot of pain and trauma over things not being my way, and I haven't processed that,
Right.
it's going to make my demand that things should be a certain way stronger. I'll say that again.
No, I
If
hear
I
you.
have a lot of pain and trauma that's unprocessed, meaning that I haven't digested it, because when it's digested, it no longer does that to you. But if it's undigested pain and trauma, then it's going to make my demands that things should be the way I want them to be a lot stronger. And that's one way I can start to look at and start to say, all right, well, what does this mean? What might be unresolved in my life that I'm still putting out this expectation and still reading? Remember what I said before, we organize our experience and what it means to us based on our current needs. So what part of me is still needing things to be the way I think they should be?
Can I respond? I mean, that's so perfect, because I feel like, I'm also a trauma therapist for many years. it's like I feel like my ego, I put myself in the role of I know these things, but maybe I haven't experienced them enough.
You know,
Which brings me,
Yes,
which brings
there
me
you
to
go.
my second recommendation. Perfect. And that is, and I don't know what work you've done, but if you haven't done the steps out of the big book and perhaps done them in a way that I've experienced them, it might be helpful to you to join the new workshops that I have coming up in January, February. They're weekly and they're a year long, but they give people a new experience with the big book and with the step process to release the rigidity that Alan was addressing that you're expressing.
Well, my ego says, of course I've done this. That's why the big book. But my humility says, I'll be in your workshop.
I knew that you would say that because people who have been long-term sobriety have done the steps.
Yeah, but you're right. Clearly, I haven't done it well enough because I'm still suffering.
Well, no, I would never have said that.
That's not what he's saying. He says they just might need to be done differently.
Yeah, no, I'm
That's what
touched.
I'm saying.
That's all. It's
I'm
don't
in.
put
Thank you,
yourself
guys.
down. There's
Yeah.
no need to put yourself down.
All right. Thank you so much.
Right, you might be available for a deeper experience now.
I think I
A
am.
deeper and a new experience with it because you
Doesn't
have the
mean what you did
consciousness.
is wrong. You maybe you can have that deeper experience because of what you've done. See, we got to keep understanding that. That's what I mean about thinking about these developmentally. You know, where I'm at is not because I'm wrong. It's just because that it's my next step.
Yeah, it's that's
That
correct.
means something
Everything
for you.
that you've
What
done.
does it mean to you, Wendy? Why are you crying? What's
There
going
you
on?
go.
Oh, I'm touched. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the thing with the program is there's always more help to come. You know, it doesn't matter how long you're there.
That's true.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, you're welcome. And just a little commercial here. The email has gone out. If you're in my email distribution, you've received it. But if you haven't, you could go to my website and register for any of the 3 workshops that start in January, February. In January, we start Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. 7 p.m. We changed the time. That's Los Angeles time. That's Tuesday. On Thursday, we start at in February at 4:00 in the afternoon. That's to cover more of North America. On Sunday, we start at 9:00 in February. Start at 9:00 to cover the UK. So some of those time zones or days might fit into your schedule. They're all parallel. They'll all start the same way. One in January, one in February. You get a chance to pick the one that suits your time and day.
I'll be there. I'll see you on Sundays.
That'll be great. No, it will be one of the best meetings you'll ever go to at the very least. Yeah. Not because I'm there, but because the people are very serious and very focused on the big book and the step process. Yeah. Thank you so much, Wendy. Claire, please.
Thank you. So I've been in recovery for food addiction for 20 years, and thank goodness I've been abstinent from day one. Very grateful for that.
What a miracle, huh?
And yes, Herb. I know your story, that first day.
Yep.
And the times that I was face down in the food, the addiction was always there, but the times that it was when I was face down in the food was when I was alone and didn't want to be alone. If I didn't choose to be alone. And I heard somebody share, it's like they had the boyfriend diet. If they had a boyfriend, they weren't face down in the food. The addiction was always there. So, the food's been down for all these years, thank goodness. And there's still this, and this is where I need help, because reading your book, Alan, being emotionally independent, because I definitely, and as my sponsor says, it's abusive. I mean, she uses codependency, emotional dependency is abusive to myself, and it's abusive to the people around me. And I don't want to do that. And so I'm in the process of noticing when this really comes up. But I feel like I'm in a prison to a certain extent. And I can say, oh, you know, I can make a list, you know, like in my 20s, I was learning how to play the piano, I was doing more art. And sometimes I go, am I just so focused on my problem? It's kind of like what you said, and let me see what my note said. It's like, what's right about me? But I think there's times where and this ebb and flows. It kind of feels like, it's kind of like this craziness of ebb and flowing. And
So what's happening right now for you that it comes up clear? What makes it so important right now? So what makes it important now?
This is an example. So my partner and I were together last night. I asked him not to stay last night because I wanted to have a really good night's sleep for this workshop. So in the morning, I just text him, and I'm talking to him about this stuff too. Like, there's this feeling of insecurity that I want to have a connection, and it's that feeling of like, I remember watching this documentary of Lennon and Yoko Ono. It's like this idea that they were inseparable. And I used to think that's how I want to be in a relationship. I want to be inseparable. It's like this feeling of neediness, of wanting. It's just, you know, and it's, yeah, okay. Okay, good. Yeah. And what else did I write down?
But what you did though is last night though, you said, I want to be separate. I want to be in a certain place, you know, for the workshop. So what was that like this morning for you that you asked for that?
It was good. It was like this, it was a dichotomy really of, you know, I enjoyed reading a book this morning. My house was quiet. I'm by myself. And then there was this feeling of like, I want to connect with him. It's this kind of an urgency.
Were you anxious?
I don't know.
Were you anxious about the separateness?
That's a good question. Maybe.
See, when you say an urgency, you know, one of the things that happens that I've seen for some people is that when you ask for something you want, there's this fear that you're going to get somebody's going to retaliate and be mad at you or upset with you, you know, for saying you want to be separate. Were you anxious about that, about how he might feel? Or you were anxious that somehow if you weren't with him all the time, he wouldn't want to be with you? Or what was it?
No, it's more of it's hard to explain, Alan. There's this feeling of like I want to glom on, or a neediness, and it can happen not necessarily always with him, but with other people too.
Okay, but you didn't have that last night. See, that's what I'm saying is for some reason that came up this morning. And was it, are you pathologizing? Hey, I just missed him. It's been a while since I talked to him. I just want to reach out for it. See, could you be over analyzing?
That's what I wondered.
That's what I'm getting. I think
that feels right to me. Yes.
Okay.
I think you're doing a total mind fucking, not just not flowing with your experience. Look, times I love talking to Herb. Sometimes I don't want to talk to Herb. He loves talking to me. Sometimes he doesn't want to talk to me. See, if I flow with that experience, then I'm honoring myself, and I'm going to feel both ways. But see, for you, you got to be so careful that you don't keep imposing this expectation that you should be different than you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the
really
voice
huge. Alan, could you unpack that just a little bit? I think
that's what I'm hearing. That's what Claire is saying. See, what I was hearing. See, we have a desire, and if we act appropriately to that desire, we're going to be calm about it. We're going to be resolved. We're going to feel good about it. You had a desire to put out that, hey, I'd like time by myself to get my head ready for a workshop. You did that. He agreed. Wonderful. He's a respectful guy. It sounds like he honors you and was able to cooperate. and then you felt good about it. And then this morning, you're sitting there and all of a sudden you had a thought about reaching out to him or connecting him. And I think that's where the mind fuck came in. I
Yes.
shouldn't do this, or it means I'm desperate.
Yes.
I asked for
Yes.
separateness and now I want to reach out to him. What the hell am I doing? I'm going to drive him crazy. He's going to think I'm not, you know.
You're
Oh.
it's spot on. It is so you're spot on.
Yeah. See,
both of you are just spot on.
it's just, see, to me, it's just, see, look at this idea that you shouldn't be who you are. See, that there is something around there I would dig around, right?
Okay.
Because you're not flowing and accepting yourself as you are in the moment. See, that's the issue. What is getting in the way of me accepting myself at any given moment? How come I'm putting an expectation on myself?
At the same time, and I just saw the other side of that, where I hear people say, oh no, that's just the way I am. And I call that bullshit.
Yeah, right.
Right? Because that's not the way you are.
No.
That's the way you choose. That's a habit that you have. That's an unconsciousness you have. And don't tell me. That may be an explanation, but it's not an excuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing is I've had this history with
Yeah,
my
no, that
former
wasn't relevant to you. My comments weren't relevant to you. It was just relevant to the balance of the people that might have said that. Oh, that's just the way I am. No, that's not true. That's not true. That's the way you choose to be. But this that wasn't relevant to you, Claire. So go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, but I understand what you're saying, Herb. Yes. I have a history of this. Of like, it's almost like a glomming on. I glommed on to my former husband. I, glommed on to my daughter. It's this kind of a neediness. And it's like, yes, I can say, oh yeah, well, go take piano lessons, go do your art. But it's like, I want it in here. I don't want it to be that I'm going to go do, these, whatever you want to call them, hobbies or something. Yes, you get involved. It's like my sponsor keeps saying to me, get involved in your own life.
I love that.
Good line.
That's deep wisdom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Live your own life.
Yes. But this is where, what did you just say? This part of like how, I can say, I can make a list of things that, I can do to get involved in my own life. And I guess that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Because, it really resonated with me.
And yet, I pause and I say,
yeah,
addicts know how to narcotize themselves. And activity can be narcotizing. It blocks out feelings and consciousness. And so that's where we need sponsorship or a sounding board of a good friend or therapist.
Yes, because that part where in the book where, to be emotionally independent instead of emotionally dependent.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good.
Thanks so much,
you.
Claire.
Thanks.
You bet. Marcy.
Hi, Marcia. I kind of had an awakening here this morning when Alan, you asked somebody to put their mother in the chair and ask her, what was it you asked her? So I did that with my mother. And I said to my mother, I'm sorry, I'm not the daughter that you had expected me to be. And I was more on the edge. I was more living on the edge. I was in college in the 60s and doing drugs and everything else. So it was I'm sure it was very upsetting to her, although my parents didn't really express it that way, but I think so. So I told her that I was sorry I wasn't the daughter she expected to be just now. And it made me realize, I have a contentious relationship with my daughter. And I realized I am treating her in a way that she's not. She's not the daughter I think she should have been.
Oh boy.
Or she is. She's in her late 30s. And I expected, a different different, you know, my expectations were different.
Oh, yeah,
And
just
I
like
have a
your mother's,
huge
just like
apology to
your,
make to her.
yeah,
What?
just like your mother's, right? Oh, my
Right,
God.
just like her.
Right, yeah,
But
you,
I can see it now, and I can see that she really isn't what I expected her to be. She did a lot of things because I pushed her to play soccer and go to the University of Michigan and all of this stuff, and she lived up to it. But she pushed to live up to it, and then she rebelled. And at least I have more flexibility now. I'm not seeing the world so much in black and white. I have
yeah.
a lot to thank you for. I mean,
Well,
that was
it's so
huge.
interesting, isn't it? She just rebelled a little later than you did. Sounds like your rebellion was earlier.
That's right.
Your mom, yeah.
Kind of. Kind of.
Wow, wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's
That's
just,
important for you, Mark. This is
it's
really,
so important because
oh,
she
this
has
is very
told me she
significant.
has threatened she's going to kill herself, and she's into drugs, and
Yeah.
I don't know what all she's into, but you know what? I have to just accept that. Obviously, all of my angst and intensity isn't changing anything. It's making it worse. So I only talk to her limited when she calls or needs something. She was sick this week and she called me to ask what she should do, and I'll answer that, but we don't hang out together. And she just said to me, I'm signing up for a some kind of a psychology. She's going into some kind of a program, like a rehab program. And she just said that on her own. And I'm just, you know, I'm not getting too excited or too not unexcited. I'm just staying even and letting her know that she's loved no matter what she does. And but with the understanding of where that was coming from, because she is talented in her own way, but not in that way I had expected it.
Very
But
good.
putting her in my mother in a chair. What?
A good friend of mine said, pay attention, watch the movie.
Right.
Her life is none of your business.
Right. And maybe enjoy a little bit of the bumps, you know, maybe there's something to sit back
Well,
and chuckle
give
at.
to her what you never got from your mom, Marcia. If you want to
Right.
heal your wound, give
Right.
to your daughter now what your mother never gave you.
So
That's
it's,
the opportunity.
do I make amends to her and say,
Oh,
I realize
yes.
that you're
Oh,
not the
big
daughter I
time.
thought you
Oh,
were?
yeah.
You're not the daughter I thought you should have been?
No, no. I am
No, I know.
sorry for laying my trip on you and doing to you what my mother did. I never was able to see how clearly I did a total number on you. And I know how it felt when my mother did it to me, and I am so sorry I did it to you.
Oh my
That's what
God,
the
that's her
amends are.
life.
Yeah, that's right. It's a big amends.
In prayer and with sponsored direction.
Yes, right.
Don't do this unilaterally, because you'll come from a lot of guilt and some negativity. Just
Right.
you're right on the money.
It's
Okay.
very good epiphany today.
Thanks,
Wonderful.
Marcia.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you for that. That sitting in the chair, I think is so good, even though my mother hasn't been alive for many, many, many years. Just being able to focus on her, even while this was on, I was able, because you made it so real, and I was able to see her, and it was like, oh my God, I'm
Nice.
talking to Allie. I'm talking to my daughter.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Nisi, is it? Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Thank
Hi.
you for the explanation in the parentheses. I saw.
Yes, hi, Urban. Alan, thank you so much for the workshop. Thank you for the time and the teaching. And so I think my question just has to do with, so I'm a food addict and I'm still struggling with putting down the food. But I did have a sponsor. So I just wanted to ask you about, I was grateful for Claire's question, because I definitely struggle with emotional dependency and codependency. In the past 2 years, I've come into some awareness about my codependency and my emotional dependency. And I separated from my husband. But no, I'm definitely a food addict. So I wanted to just ask you about, I had a sponsor as of last.
You're muting. You're going in and out of muting.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I had a sponsor, and I was able, with what I called in my mind the effect and influence of that sponsor. She's very strong, has 39 years abstinence, and I had 23 days abstinence, which was for me a miracle. And it was a miracle.
You're muted again.
Oh no. Oh gosh.
There you go. It's going in and out, but you're go ahead, please.
Okay. But it's basically, I thought I would just, I asked her about, why I was able to be abstinent with her. I'm struggling a lot now back in the food. And I think, she said, she denied that it was her effect. She said the big book, she's very much a big book sponsor. And she said, no, it was either you or see.
We're missing a lot of what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I can come back. Thank you.
Well, do you have a question?
I think just to ask about your thoughts on status with the role of the sponsor, because of the influence that sponsor has on me. And I've never been able to get 23 days abstinence, but I could with this sponsor. And so I left her. I don't know why I left her, but maybe I should go back. So I guess my thought is just where I'm tripping up, because I maybe should have stayed with that sponsor.
Well,
and I haven't worked this up.
I'm sure this is a longer conversation than we can have, but I have a lot of exposure and experience with the food addicts in a variety of 12-step programs. There's probably 5 or 8 of them. And the sponsor is really important for direction, and the big book is really important. But the whole point of the steps is to have a relationship with power. Your relationship with your sponsor is good. The relationship with the steps is good. But the only critical issue is a relationship with power. And you're in a 12-step program because you're powerless over your addiction. So follow the direction of a sponsor that knows the big book and the steps so that you can find a relationship with power. And you won't get abstinent until you have a relationship with power. Your sponsor and the steps and the 12-step program is not going to give you abstinence. Abstinence comes, at least in my experience in the big book on page 84, when you finish your 9th step. Yeah, it says we are placed, hear the grace of that. We are placed in a position of neutrality, and not a moment sooner. Now, you heard on the call, many people receive abstinence earlier. That it's a mystery, actually. It's a mystery. I don't know why, but it's just what is. But the book and my experience with other people says, when you finish the first 9 steps, somehow we're connected in a way with power that we can't do on our own willpower or at sponsor direction. All right. Does that make sense to you? All right.
What I would say to you, Nishi, I just want to add a little bit something. See, I think it's very important for you to really hear what you are asking. Did this sponsor change me? And did I change because of this sponsor? One of the things that, thank God, I learned is I don't change anybody that comes to see me.
Right.
But I am able to help activate something inside of them that helps them discover possibilities.
Yes.
Now, there's something about the relationship you had with her. So it wasn't the sponsor necessarily, it was your relationship with her, what it meant to you. See, I think that's the bigger thing. It's not in the sponsor, it's in the relationship to her. And that's what you need to look at. You were getting something from that meant a lot to you, obviously. So when you said I stopped it, because that's something I would look at if I were you. Is that because you felt unworthy of it? Because you failed her, or you relapsed and you were ashamed to go back and talk about it, or what? I don't know what made you stop it, but that's your first question. What the hell did I do to get out of a relationship that was good for me?
Yeah. What's your answer to that question, by the way?
My answer is I wrestled with all the time my relationship with her, because I guess she is very all business. She's very strict in all business. And she knows the big book backwards and forwards, and she's wonderful that way. But she was not as heart-centered or as understanding of my mental health. I have OCD and anxiety, and she wanted to go through the steps really quickly. And I have some OCD, and it was so. She wasn't.
Did you express that to her?
Yeah. Did you?
I did, but she doesn't. She doesn't think it's.
Well, she doesn't have the bandwidth for it. But see, that would be something like, can you take from her what you need and find what you're looking for somewhere else? See, I don't know if you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, especially when you're getting something out of her.
Right.
You know,
so I've tried to go back to her, and she will let me come back to her if I review my step 1 work with her. She will.
Oh, okay.
So that's good, but I'll just have to basically fight through my anxiety.
No, you just go to someone else for that.
Oh,
don't fight through it.
You can walk and chew gum. You can walk and chew gum.
Yeah.
Yeah, get somebody else. I mean, take care of that with somebody else that can take care of it. But if she's obviously offered some value to you.
Yes, that's true.
So this is about you accepting what's available, and what's not that you need, you get it somewhere else, and you have to cut off that relationship.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Thank you, both of you.
And I'm very practical. What can you do? What will you do? And what works?
That's right. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's it. See, you're too black and white, dear.
Yes, that's true.
That's probably not news to you. So no. So let's clean that up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Gloria, please.
Gloria. Gloria.
I always get, sing that song all the time.
Oh my God. I hope they sing it better than I can sing it, Gloria.
Similar, very similar. Hi, everyone. Gloria, I actually don't live that far from the Mary and Joseph Center, only a couple of minutes. And I never heard of Mary and Joseph Center before. So I think I actually might go visit maybe sometime.
Oh, wonderful.
This week.
Worthwhile. Yeah, it's a beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I looked at some of it online.
It's an energy there is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what I need. I need the energy.
It's a very healing energy.
So I'm a part of a couple 12-step programs, Nar-Anon, Al-Anon, Coda, Slaw. And, I'm in these programs for a lot of reasons, partly because I am my own qualifier, and I'm on step 4 right now. I'm having a lot of, I've been stuck on step 4 for quite a few months now.
Well,
and
when
I can't.
Stuck. Wait. When you say stuck, what does that mean?
Oh, it's like, what was that?
Well, when you say stuck, what does that mean?
Stuck as in just completing it.
So why are you not doing that? Why are you not completing it? You're not stuck. You're not doing the work. You're not stuck.
I'm not doing the work. Yeah.
Well, you're not stuck. You're not doing the work. Why do you want to do the work?
I want to do the work because I know it's going to transform my life.
You don't believe that for a minute.
Yeah, I think I probably am having a hard time. I'm believing that.
Well, yeah, if you believe that, oh my God, what a great statement. You would do the work. So you actually really don't believe that it's going to work.
Yeah, you know what? There's a part of me that probably doesn't believe it.
You have a sponsor. You have a sponsor that's taking you through the steps?
Yeah, I do have a sponsor that's taking me through the steps.
Okay, so at what part of the step process of step 4 did you stop?
I probably finished fears and resentment.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, you're 2/3 of the way through. The sex inventory, is that daunting for you?
I don't think it's daunting for me. I just think,
Why aren't you doing it?
I think because I'm putting just excuses on why I'm not doing it.
No, that's a cover story.
Yeah.
No, you don't need an excuse to do it or not do it. Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing the sex inventory?
I think most of it because I just don't want to do it.
Oh, well, there you go.
I
So
just don't want to
what
do it.
would
I
be
think it
the
scares me.
All right. What? Oh, say it again.
It scares me to do
Okay.
the sex inventory.
Okay. All right.
You know, it really does. It really
All
does
right.
scare me to really open up and be vulnerable with myself and with another human being. And I'm not used to that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
You
No.
know,
Now you're getting down underneath it.
you know,
So
I'm not used to that at all. Like I'm not.
what is the instruction to do a sex inventory?
The instruction is I just do it out of actually the big book.
Yes, okay, that's excellent. But what is the instruction in the big book?
Ooh, I don't remember.
Oh, see, because you don't know what to do, you're not doing it.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. And
Wait. The instruction in the big book is really simple. You answer 9 questions, and none of them are about sex. None of them are about genital sexuality. They're all about your motives and the thoughts and the feelings and the behavior and the impact on other people.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just having a hard time with just putting pen to paper and just doing the work.
Well, no, you're not having a hard time. You're not doing it.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. You're right. I'm not
All
doing
right.
it at all.
But you said wonderfully, it will transform my life, and you've done already 2 parts of it. So something
Yeah.
else is going on here. Alan, do you have any thoughts?
Well, see, it's very interesting, Gloria. See, you think of yourself in terms of a singularity. Like I'm not doing it. Well, but then when you talk, it's obvious to me, or else you wouldn't have even raised your hand here,
That's right.
that you're in conflict over that,
Yeah, that's right.
which already suggests there's at least 2 of you in there,
Mhm.
right? There's a part that says, I want to do this, and the other part that says, I'm not doing it. So that's the issue here, right? Not the wanting to do it, not the not wanting to. It's what is that conflict about?
Yeah.
That's the thing for you to try to understand more. I'm in conflict over this. What does that conflict mean? So the part of you that wants to do it, what does it say? How come you want to do it?
Because I know it's gonna. The thing is, now that we're talking about it and unraveling it, I think the big part of it is change.
All right, but stay with what I'm asking you. Don't jump ahead yet. Hold on. So I want to do it because I
know it's gonna transform my life.
okay, I have hopes and some experience that it's going to transform. Now, and so now the other part of you says, I don't want to do it because
I'm afraid.
aha. All right, now what does the part that wants to do it say to the part that's afraid?
To let go. You know, to let go.
What do you want to say to her? Say it to her. Say it to her. What do you want to say to her?
I think I would just say like, oh, this is like cutting deep for me. It's okay for change. It's okay to let go. It's okay to try something new in your life.
Okay, great. Now go to the part that's afraid. What does she say back to you?
Don't change. Don't change.
Is it helping what you're saying? That this other part of you said to you, this other part of you said that it's okay to be afraid. Does that mean something for you?
Yeah, because I know that like I would have to cut certain people out of my life.
Well, maybe or maybe not. See, that sat back to that thing. If you listen to it earlier, was that your daughter that just came up to you?
Yeah, they're running around.
No, she sensed that you were in trouble and she came over.
Yeah.
That was sweet, by the way. Be aware of that. That was very
sweet.
So look, this is what you need to do. You can't do it now. You're getting a little distracted. I understand that. But look at this conflict. Dialogue like we were just doing. Take a piece of paper, put on one side that's part that wants to, the side that says no, but have them talk to each other, because that part needs support from you. See, a lot of times we don't do things because we're not giving ourselves the support we need to do it. Now, you also may need, as Herb has mentioned before, sometimes a good sponsor can give you that support until you can support yourself better. But you need to find a way to support yourself more. You're not doing it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I am. I'm
not.
carrying a heavy
If
load.
you were, you would do it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you are. You're right. I am in constant conflict
Yes, you are.
with myself.
That's the point that you need to deal with. Okay.
And at the same time, just to throw in my own personal experience, you're saying that if you do the inventory, you're going to change, and you really don't want to change some of the relationships that you have right now. So you're in definite conflict there. I mean, that's a very practical concept.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. I'm actually going to look more and dig a little deeper into that.
I think so.
Yeah. The primary item that I learned that really helped me in the sex inventory is, what is the principle? What is the principle? The ninth question is, what should I have done instead, which revealed to my principle? I should be honest. I should be considerate. I should be sensitive. I should be faithful. I should be whatever the principle is. And when you go against the principles that you have, not anybody else's principles, not external principles, but the principles that are in you that will be surfaced by that question, what should I have done instead? If you go against those principles, you will suffer. So you have to find some integration and some authentic relationship with your own principles.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you'll get free.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, you've got a lot of courage. Thank you for coming on. That was great. And follow it up, please. Yeah, with your sponsor, maybe. All right. Thank you. Crystal, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I am really enjoying this workshop. Thank you so much, Herb and Alan. I've been sober 33 years, and I'm also in the food program, which I'm struggling with, but that's another issue. And I feel stuck. So over my 33 years, I've sponsored people here and there, but not a whole lot. But right now, so let me back up. So my career path has been one of, I did night shift intensive nursing with really sick babies and children for 16 years, and then worked at a nursing home. And anyway, so, I know I have enjoyed being a caregiver, but I couldn't do night shift anymore. So about 13 years ago, I left and started working for the government, doing public health and computer type.
Rather than your story, you said you're stuck. Where are you stuck?
I am stuck with, I don't have a passion. I don't feel as passionate anymore about my work like I used to when I worked with children. I'm also stuck with, I'm having really big time management issues that have been cyclical on and off over the years. I'm stuck with, I can't take the damn iPad out the bed at night to get sleep so that I can get up in the morning and get on with my day in a timely fashion. And it's like, because I'm not working at night anymore, that time from 5 p.m. to 11 just feels like it's my sacred time where I get to do what I want and do something nurturing and fun for me, but it's not really nurturing and fun anymore because it's become another addiction where
that's what I'm hearing.
Ruining the next day.
When's the last time you went through the steps?
It's been a couple of years because and I've gone through them in FA. We do a separate thing.
No, in FA you do an AWOL. It's a very superficial approach to the steps. So from my standpoint, you're being around 33 years and AWOL doesn't count as going through the steps. I'm sorry. It's very superficial. It's like going to kindergarten.
Okay.
Yeah, well, tell me I'm wrong.
No, I'm listening, yeah.
Right, yeah. So when's the last time you went through the steps in a deep fashion, steps 1 through 9?
Probably 3 years ago with my
Oh, that's fairly recent. That's fairly recent. Was it a good experience for you?
It was not really. It was
So you didn't really go through the steps then?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's what that I hear it all the time. I go through the steps. Oh, I've gone through the steps. Yeah, no, not really. If you didn't have a profound experience going through steps 1 through 9, because every time I did over a 20-year period. So I'm just challenging you. You have a new addiction, and it's undermining your life, right? Yeah, I mean your pad, your electronics.
Right.
You're not getting enough sleep.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And therefore you compensate in emotions and or maybe food and or in dissatisfaction and or lack of sleep is a killer.
Right. And I guess I'm also wondering, like, underneath that, I lost my grandmother in 2020. I was one of her caregivers, and I lost my mother 14 months later in 2021.
Wow.
And I feel I've always had this ultra strong sense of self-preservation, but become at another level of COVID on top of it. And I never got married, and I never had children. And I feel almost, sometimes I feel claustrophobic in here.
Well, Crystal, I think too, is if you go back to what I said earlier, see, something happened where you started to lose yourself.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you've been working a pretty good program up until recently.
Yeah.
And I think the grief, let's not underestimate the big impact it has. Remember when I said when we lose people close to us, we lose a part of ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's what's going on here. You've been lost and you haven't been able to get a hold of yourself again. I think Herb's idea is probably right about trying to use the steps to get back in touch with yourself again, but something along those lines. You're not going to find it in the iPad. We know that. Right?
Well, and you're not going to find it in caring for other people in the way you've been used to. What I heard is, I think, is all of the opportunities for you to take care of people have all gone away now.
Yes.
And you don't feel useful. No, I mean,
right. See, and that's part of the loss, Herb.
Right.
One of the ways that this whole discussion got extended in terms of Kubler-Ross's 5 different stages of grief, right? Recently, there's a 6th one added, and that is the loss of purpose. And nobody talked about that until recently, and that's what I'm hearing, Crystal. Is that's why I think that this is really about finding yourself again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're narcotizing yourself through your electronics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I signed up for your workshop in February. So
Well, buckle up, girl.
That's great.
thank you so much.
And
Thank
keep
you
coming to
very
Emotional
much.
Sobriety. Come and join us on Thursday nights. I think you'll
Oh.
find that to be of value too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. Bob, please.
This is Rainey. Let me interrupt for just a minute. We are getting close to the end of our time, and Dr. Berger asked me to announce that we would just be responding to Bob and Lisa, but there won't be any more questions after that.
Good. Yes, that's true. We have 2 hands up and we'll take those 2 hands. Thanks very much, Rainey, for being clear.
Thank you, Rainey. You are the wind beneath my wings.
That's good, Bob.
I
like that.
I'm Bob. I'm an alcoholic, and I too am in step 4, and I've never said I'm stuck in it. I've had a lot of people tell me that. Oh, so how come you're stuck? I'm like, I don't know if I'm stuck. I'm just in step 4, and it's been a real eye opener. And the last thing I think I needed, I don't know. My problem was being unwilling to change absolutely everything about myself, and it's not my choice. And that is a tough one to wrap your head around, that I'm here to change, right? I mean, I think we all are. We're here for transformation, right? Which means we're going to change. It's not like going to math class, right? A lot of people are going to want to rush you through step 4 if you have a sponsor. As Herb says, you can't make a flower grow faster by pulling on it, right? My problem was when
You
I
can't
realized,
uproot it though, Bob, right? If you
yeah,
pull-
you can pull it right out of the pot. You put a when you look at step 6 and 7, you are literally saying, take everything about me and you sort it out and change what needs to be changed. That is hard thing, because there are simply things about yourself that you are not going to want to be willing to change, or it's taken me years to get to the point just to say. And then of course fear sets in. What if I don't get to, mine was, what if I don't get to listen to music anymore? What if I don't like music? I mean, it sounds, to a lot of people that sounds pretty stupid, because maybe they don't listen to a lot of music, but to me it was a big deal. But now I know, I think I got a message. I think I got a little hint that that's going to be okay, because I watched a movie and there was a song in the soundtrack and I just started bawling. It's the craziest thing in the world. The moral of the story of the movie is, whether it's the original God, the icon the natives are worshiping, the God of the temples in Japan, or Protestant or Catholic God, it's all the same God, and only faith in that God can save mankind when nature is out of balance. The movie is Mothra. It's about a giant moth. This is true. And I was going to throw the thing out. I put the disc on, and now I'm like, maybe I'm looking for these things. I don't know. But I listened to it and I just was floored that this was what the movie was about.
And at the same time, Bob, and as you know, I talk about step 6 and 7 as critically transformative, maybe more important than any other steps. The step 6 is about the willingness, and when you're not willing or you're afraid, to pray for the willingness, because it's about spiritual intervention. We do the best we can, and I know it's not going to carry me across the goal line, but I'm in partnership with a power that I believe will carry me across the goal line.
Well, it's easier for me, because how many things in my life would I not want to change right now? I mean, there's so few things in my life right now that, and none of them particularly spark joy, as Maria Kondo would say, the clean it up girl. So, yeah, what worked for me was just sit down and go, imagine all the aspects of your life that you can think of, that you can pin down and define, and imagine them just not being there anymore, or something different being there in its stead. Yeah. Can you literally become willing to have that happen?
And can you be willing to be taken beyond your imagination? Because that's Alan's and my experience.
Yeah.
We have a life now that we couldn't have imagined at the
I couldn't have imagined any of this stuff before I came to this program. This has been like I keep saying, it's been a cross between the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits. I just don't even try and overthink things anymore, because it's just like tying my shoelaces together. I'm going to fall flat on my face.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
You bet. Lisa, please.
Hi, Herb and Alan and everyone. Thanks for being here. I am doing an experiment. I've been in 12-step programs for 12 years. I started through NA and then dabbled in AA a little bit, and then OA, and then FA. And right now I'm kind of without program. And I've decided to try a little controlled drinking and see what would happen.
Okay.
And it's been okay. The mental aspect has kicked in. It's a new experience, and I think that's part of it. But there's this conflict within me around, can I be a so-called moderate drinker and still do this work of emotional sobriety?
Of course you can.
What does that look like?
Our way of living may have its advantages for all. Bill Wilson said it in the preface to the first edition, first paragraph. Read that. My workshops are open to anybody who wants to have a spiritual awakening. It does not address, as a primary, it does not address addiction. It addresses life. So the answer is 100% yes.
Okay.
See, I think the thing for you, Lisa, is to understand what it would mean if you're crossing the line. Because look, a lot of people that think they're alcoholic may not be. I mean, that's the truth.
100%.
You know, especially if you get this diagnosis early in your life, you know, there's a lot of people that might grow out of that whole thing, is what our experience has been. But you'll know, look, Bill always said the real test is, the litmus test is, try some controlled drinking. Now, what controlled drinking is, though, let's make clear what that means. It doesn't mean I only have 5 drinks a night. And, you know, it's like, you know, controlled drinking says something like, you know, I'm going to limit myself to 1 drink or 2 drinks. And can I do that? See, if I cannot honor that, then we have the loss of control.
Right.
See, only an alcoholic would have difficulty saying, you know, I'm going to limit myself. I'm never going to drink more than 2 drinks in the evening. I don't want to do that to myself. I don't want to put myself in that place or that state of mind. A social drinker will honor that. A social drinker gets 1 DUI, never drinks to the point where they drive and drink before. Alcoholic has 4.
Yeah.
So just pay attention to that line.
Yeah, the line I noticed, like I was able to stop, which was fascinating to me because when I was younger, I couldn't.
Couldn't, right.
But now I was like stopped. I felt almost satisfied and just kind of was able to stop.
That's a clue. If that keeps going on, then you're probably okay.
What's interesting is the next day, the thinking starts. And I think it's the conflict. I think I need to do some parts work on it.
Yeah, that would be good to do some parts work on it, because you will be in conflict because you've been getting all this other information, and now you're trying something that's very incongruent with what you've been doing.
And one of the questions is, why is alcohol so important to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't
don't answer that. But if that might be one of the reasons. What made it that you wanted to even try to bring it back in your life?
Yeah.
I would look at that. I think that's a worthy exploration.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you. I hope you
Keep us
register for
informed.
one of the workshops, because
And then come to Thursday nights. The same thing. The emotional sobriety thing is not.
And is it through the same link here?
No, it put Rainey will put it in the chat room again as we wrap up.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah. So come.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay.
And please share your journey with us periodically if you come to the workshop, because I will personally be interested in your journey.
Me too.
Okay, thank you.
Me too, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, look at that, Alan. We did what we wanted to, which was engage the group in a lot of questions and a dialogue. I hope it was
more than we've ever done before.
More than we've ever done.
And you know, this is Herb and I have been really leaning towards this more and more. You will be getting all of the slides that we were going to talk about, and that we did talk about, but not based on the slides. So you're going to recognize many things that are in the slides to come as points we talked about. But look, this made it more personal for a lot of you when we do this personal work with people. And that's what recovery is about. It's a personal journey, and it's not just learning things, but it's experiencing things. So thank you for letting us into your hearts and minds.
And if you have observations about its helpfulness, or it's not what you expected and was helpful, let us know, because we're here to help. We're not here to impress you. We're here to help in a way. And the way Alan and I saw what we did today was that there was a lot of personal dialogue. There was feet on the ground in this experience. And another thing that is not subtle, but I want to bring it to your attention, is it may have modeled to you how you help other people. The way Alan talks to people, the way I talk to people, and elicit out by asking questions or making observations. That's modeling, and we think that there's a couple styles here that might be helpful to you. Alan, any parting comments?
No, listen, Herb, look, this has been an ongoing evolution in terms of our working together, and I just think we keep sweetening the pot left and right, and I love
Well,
it.
it becomes less in the head and much more on the feet on the ground experience. And we think it's helpful. And if you support that, that's great. And if you don't, let us know, because we want to navigate the middle ground here. Yeah.
No, so we look forward to you coming next time, and we'll be doing this next year. We're continuing to do this every 3 months, I believe. Herb is.
Yes, we have 4 scheduled events next year. In some way, I'll communicate those to the people who participated today.
And listen, please come on Thursday night, that workshop. It's open. There's no charge for it. There's no dues or fees. It's remarkable. There's a bunch, about 80 videos now have been recorded. So it's archived, and there's a YouTube channel called the Institute for Optimal Recovery. And if you want to catch up on some of those videos, what we've done in that Thursday night workshop is the first section was to look at the steps and how they impact emotional sobriety. Then I did a little, I think about 8 or 10 weeks on differentiation, which we didn't talk too much about tonight, but if you want to learn more about it, go there. And now then Herb joined us, and we've been doing the 12 steps and talking about the 12 steps and self-esteem and emotional sobriety. And it's been just wonderful having you there, Herb. And the discussions are so rich with Roger Andes, who's another psychotherapist, and Tom Rutledge. I just really enjoy it. And I walk away every night with more than I came.
Well, the half of the time is the professionals talking about a particular issue, and the other half is the people on the call interacting with the professionals about their questions and or circumstances. So it's actually a really robust meeting. Yeah. So let's pray the serenity prayer, the prayer of emotional sobriety. I don't control anything. I influence everything. I need to know the difference between control and influence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
All right, you guys. Thank you.
Everybody.
We'll see you at our next workshop. Take care, Herb. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
Thanks, you guys.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
You bet.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Hope it was helpful. Bye-bye.
Very helpful. Thank you, Herb.
Thanks, Herb. Keep your head